The commission resumes. Major General, you're still under oath. Mr. Madlanga.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, you are given to giving very long answers, and speaking for myself, maybe it's just me, I sometimes get lost as to what the substance of the response is. I want to just take you back. There was a debate between you, Commissioner Henrich, and then the chairperson, but all of it commencing from a debate with you by me on the bullet points under paragraph 23 of your supplementary statement. Now, if you may, can you try to give a very brief answer to this question? And the chairman did put the question to you, but I'm not sure what the answer was eventually. When you decided to motivate to the provincial commissioner that SABS should proceed to stage 3, had you since decided that escalation was no longer a factor and that you wanted stage 3 to be proceeded to regardless of whether or not there was escalation? Can you please try to answer that directly?
Awungazama ukuphendula nje lo mbuzo kokuba ngelixesha usenza isigqibo sokuba niyawungenela kumgangatho wesithathu uyenze loo nto noma kungasekho kongezeka kobundlobongelo babukhona apha.
Chairperson, according to my supplementary statement, paragraph 23, if we check all the bullet points, and also if we check paragraph 25, combination of factors.
I would have a statement some paragraph 23 jonga zonke izinto ezibhale apho ugqitha uya ku 25.
So does that mean to you the decision that the police would proceed to stage 3 was no longer relevant? You motivated that SABS proceed to stage 3, even if there had not been escalation. Is that what you mean? I want to get clarity on this, General.
Funa nje ucacise lo nto General ukuba noma kwakunjalo ke wenza isigqibo sokuba noma singasekho sidingo ngenxa yokuba iya ngokwenzeka ngokwanda lento makuchujeke kungene kumgangatho wesithathu.
Chairperson, I've said combination of factors, both the escalation and failure to the negotiations and the handing over. And it's explained thoroughly in paragraph 25 of my statement, of the supplementary statement.
Ichazeka kabanzi lento phaya ku paragraph 25 determina ukuhlangana kwazo zonke ezi zinto ukuphanza kwothethathethwano nokungabekwa phansi kwezixhobo nayo yonke enye into inzame ebese ziphanzile.
May I just ask something, please? So you are saying that there was escalation. There was an escalation of the violence. Is that what you're saying?
Ngamanye amazwi yayiya ngokwanda lento, General.
Got to be escalation after the 6 o'clock meeting, I take it. At the 6 o'clock meeting, it was decided that if there was escalation, stage 3 would be implemented. Now that surely doesn't mean past escalation. It must mean escalation after the 6 o'clock meeting. Is that right?
Correct, Chairperson. Correct, Chairperson.
kokuba sasiyawujonga ukwanda kwezehlakalo emva kwehora lesithathu lesithandathu.
To Chairperson, to continue with the answer, the threats that were made to the police officers in the morning, to me that showed that the escalation can take place.
Enye
And
into
the change
zikhokiso
of the mood of the people, stopping of the negotiations were the clear indications that escalation of violence can take place. And that is surely after 6 o'clock meeting, as the chairperson has indicated.
izinto ezenzeka emva kwenhlanganiso yakusasa
Also
ngehora
taking into
lesithandathu.
account the address by Mr. Matunjwa,
Kwaba kwezikhokiso
going back
ezijongiswe
maybe of the
emaphoyiseni.
negotiation to bullet number 2 of my son.
We talked about that yesterday. The Matunjwa had negotiated with them the previous night and agreed he'd come back the next morning, 9 o'clock. He didn't come back at 9 o'clock, he only went back after 12. So by the time you made your report to Provincial Commissioner Mbomba, he hadn't even started negotiating with them again on the 16th. So I don't see how you can use that factor. Did you in fact, is that what you in fact said to Provincial Commissioner Mbomba? One of the reasons why you think stage 3 should be implemented now was the fact that the negotiations had failed. Did you say that to her?
Wayisho loo nto ku-Provincial Commission okokuba isizathu esenza ukuba kungene
What you got in your word.
kwesithathu okokuba uthethathethwano alusachubeki. Uyibeka lento umgcinisihlalo okokuba uMathunjwa wayethethe naba bantu phezolo kwakudingeka ukuba abuye ngo-9 akabuyanga ke ngelo xesha uMathunjwa.
The question I asked you, I was discussing a point with one of my colleagues. The question I asked you, so I didn't hear your answer. The question I asked you was, is one of the things you said to Provincial Commissioner Mbomba that the negotiations with the strikers through the president of AMCU had failed? Did you say that to the commissioner, the provincial commissioner?
Provincial Commission okokuba uthetha
When you told her that you had in fact decided that stage 3 to be implemented?
ngeli xesha uthi kuyena ungena kumgama wesithathu wamxelela okokuba uthethathethwano phakathi kuMathunjwa nabasebenzi alubanga impumelelo.
Correct, Chairperson, as is stated in my supplementary statement.
Ewe mhlekazi njengoba ndibhalile apha kwestatement sam sesibini.
What time did you have this discussion with the provincial commissioner?
Awuxesha nini ke xa uthetha no-Provincial Commissioner?
Between 13 and 13:30.
Phakathi kuka-1 no1:30.
Mr. Matunjwa come back from speaking to the strikers at that stage?
Bese buyile uMathunjwa ke ekuthetheni nabantu ngelo xesha.
No, Chairperson.
Bengekabuyi mhlekazi.
When did he come back?
Ubuye nini ke?
Chairperson, he did come back. If we check the SMS, that he did come back later at that, not precisely on the time, but it was after 13:30.
Yeah.
Wabuya akukho.
So you hadn't received a report from him as to the results of his first meeting on the 16th with the strikers when you spoke to the provincial commissioner?
Xesha uthetha no-Provincial Commissioner bongafumana ingxelo evela kuye uMathunjwa.
Correct, Chairperson.
So therefore you couldn't, sorry, I'm sorry Mr. Mshanga, go ahead, please
Yes,
proceed.
Chairperson, by the time when I briefed the provincial commissioner, Mr. Matunjwa, with what we spoke about yesterday, it was 9 o'clock.
Ndithethe naye phezolo wathi uzawuza ngo-9.
He was going to see them at 9 o'clock. He didn't. There were reasons we won't have to go into. Later on, according to his unchallenged evidence, the provincial commissioner, in fact, berated him for not going and said he had an obligation to go to endeavour to persuade the strikers to lay down their arms. And he eventually went. And that was at some stage, that was at about 12:35. According to Exhibit L, slide 161, he addressed the protesters, as they called the strikers in other words, at 12:35. And he only returned, as you yourself have said, before the... He only returned, as you yourself had said, after the 13:30 meeting had commenced. Isn't that correct?
Andithi uthetha ngolo hlobo uba kucacile uba wathetha no-provincial commissioner xa ethi ucommissioner makaye phaa yothetha nabantu kwakungu-12:35 njengoba usitsho ke wena wabuya emva kwaphasi-1.
Correct, Chairperson.
So therefore, he hadn't yet reported back to you what the results of his address to the strikers was. He hadn't reported that to you by the time you spoke to the provincial commissioner between 1300 and 1330. That's correct too, isn't it?
Correct,
kaloku xa
Chairperson.
uthetha no-provincial commissioner ubengekabuyi kuwe azoxela ukuba uhambe kanjani. Ewe mhlekazi.
Yeah. Did you know what had happened? When he was addressing the people at that stage?
Ubusunolwazi lokuba kwenzeke ntoni phaya xa ethetha nabaqhankqalazi?
No, Chairperson.
Bendingazi mhle.
So therefore, you could not have correctly told the provincial commissioner between 1300 and 1330 that negotiations with the strikers through Mr. Matunjwa had failed, because you did not yet know what the outcome was of his meeting with them. That's correct, isn't it?
Andithi kunjalo ukuba beyingeyona inyani le nto boyithetha no-provincial commissioner okokuba iphanzile uthethathethano phaya ngoba ubungakayazi loo nto bengekanxelwa kuwe.
Chairperson, this one of Mr. Matunjwa is true that I did not know at that time, between the time when I briefed the provincial commissioner.
Kamathunja inyani mhlekazi njengoba uyisho nje bendingazi ukuba ukwenzeke ntoni xa ndithetha no-provincial commissioner ngaye.
But Chairperson, what I wanted to say is that any other changes, even thereafter, they could have been taken into account.
I understand. You made that point yesterday. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but you did make the point yesterday that if Matunjwa had come back and said, hooray, they've agreed to put down their arms, stage 3 hadn't been implemented yet, and that decision could have been cancelled.
Yes.
I understand that point.
Uyayiva loo ntetho.
You made that point clear yesterday.
Xa umathunja beze kuwe wathi hayi bazibekile
I'm busy with a different point.
ndisachubeke.
And that is, I'm interested to know what exactly you told the provincial commissioner. You say you told her what is in paragraph 23 of your supplementary statement. Now, I've got a difficulty with that, which is it's my duty to put it to you. The difficulty is either you gave her incorrect information about the negotiations through Matunjwa, or you didn't say that to the provincial commissioner. One or the other. Now, you said you did say that to her. So therefore it follows that what you said was at that stage was not correct. That appears to be correct, unless there's something that I've overlooked. Am I correct in what I put to you?
Funde intetho yakho ke apha mhlekazi. Apha usithi kuye khona uprovincial commissioner uthethathethana libanga impumelelo ungafumana ingxelo evela kumathunja ibengakwazi ukuba yinyaniso loo nto.
Chairperson, the original agreement that we spoke about, it was 9 o'clock. To the provincial commissioner, in terms of my bulletproof, it was with regard to 9 o'clock.
Sasivumelene nomathunja kokuba uyawuya ngo-9 ngako ke ndaxelela uprovincial commissioner ukuba ayibanga impumelelo leyo nto ngoba angayanga.
I've got a difficulty with that, Major General. And that is that, as I put it to you, according to the unchallenged evidence of Mr. Matunjwa, the provincial commissioner knew he hadn't gone to them at 9 o'clock. But she berated him for not going. She said he was under an obligation to go and speak to the strikers. She told him that he must convince them or persuade them to lay down their arms. He said he had a problem with, he couldn't get something from London. She said she didn't care. He still had a duty to go. So she was in fact urging him to continue with the negotiations in the hope that somehow he would be able to persuade the strikers to lay down their arms. So she would have known that the negotiations were still ongoing and hadn't failed, hadn't come to a conclusion. So how could you have said that to him, to her? What you say you said. It doesn't make sense. I'm sorry to put you so strongly, but you understand, my job is to endeavour to understand your evidence, and I have this problem, and I mustn't keep the problem to myself. I must give you a chance to deal with it. So you understand my problem, at least, I hope.
uyayibona ingxaki endikuyo mhlekazi okokuba andikwazi okokuba ndiyayiva nto okokuba uprovincial commissioner xa ethi kumathunjwa unyanzelekile ukuba uyothetha naba bantu bakhe babeke phantsi izixhobo ubesazi okokuba aluka phantsi uthethathethwano ngoku bungamxelela kanjani wena okokuba ayiphumelelanga le nto yothethathethwano nantso ingxaki endinayo.
Chairperson, the provincial commissioner knew that Mr. Matunjwa had to go, and I did testify that when Mr. Matunjwa came back to me, he didn't find the provincial commissioner, but he met me personally. And as I'm indicating to the chairperson, if there was any other change that Mr. Matunjwa, after he went to address the protesters, has changed, surely it could also have been conveyed to the provincial commissioner. And what I've briefed her about for 9 o'clock could have changed.
Le nto bendimxelele efayini kwenzeka ngo-9 uprovincial commissioner xa kubuye kwaba khona uguquko xa umathunjwa esebuya eza kum wandifumana mna bendizakwazi ukuba ndenze uguqulo olufanele.
Mdlanga, would you care to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, in itemizing what you considered to be or to constitute an escalation, you referred to the stopping of negotiations. Can you just clarify what you mean by that?
Xa uthi wabona okokuba ziyangokwanda izehlakalo ezi ngokuba ungasekho thetha ngawusichazela apho ukuba uyichaza kanjani loo nto.
Chairperson, I said is a combination of factors.
No, General, what do you mean when, just before the debate with the chairperson, when you referred, amongst others, itemizing what constituted escalation, when you refer to stopping of negotiations, what do you mean by stopping of negotiations?
Xa uthetha ngokuba uthethathethwano alusekho luphanzile ubuchaza ntoni apho mhlekazi?
When I talk about stopping of negotiations, which, as I said, is one of the reasons to stage 3, I'm speaking about when the members report on duty on the 16th. The change of the protesters in terms of what was happening even the days before, it was no longer be there. Now I'm talking about with the our negotiators. Chairperson.
Ndithetha nge-negotiators ezethu ezahluleka ukuthetha nabo ndithetha ngeentsuku ezingaphambili kwezo iimini ezingaphambili kwezo na ngeli xesha xa kufika ababeze empangelweni ngomhla ka-16 ushintsho olwasalukhona kukuziphatha kwabaqhankqalazi.
I'm talking about what Colonel McIntosh reported. What has happened in that morning on the 16th?
Colonel McIntosh ngesenzo sangaloo ntsasa.
Did he say that SABC had reached a stage where they were now calling off negotiations? That is, they, Colonel McIntosh and them as negotiators.
wathi uColonel McIntosh kuwe nababanye bebanza uthetha wathi bona abasaqhubeki ngothetha nabaqhankqalazi wayithetha kuwe loo nto.
Chairperson, if you may go to Colonel McIntosh statements to indicate that there was no willing on the other side for negotiations. That is what I'm referring.
Kwintetho kaColonel McIntosh kukho apha beza khona kokuba kwakungekho bambiswano kungekho kuzwana phakathi kwabo nabaqhankqalazi ngothethathethwana.
Perhaps you can tell us what it is that Colonel McIntosh reported to you, General?
Asixela uba wathini kuwe uColonel McIntosh kuwe General?
Not precisely quoting what he says, there was no willingness on the part of the protesters themselves to talk with the police at that stage.
Wathi ngelo xesha aba baqhankqalazi abazimiselanga ukuthetha nabo ukuba kubekho uthethwano phakathi kwawo namapolisa.
General, yesterday, you in so many words said that the escalation was a reference to an escalation of or in violence. Do you remember saying that?
Uyayikhumbula intetho yakho yezolo General uthe wena uthetha ngokwanda kwezehlakalo ungquzulwano lwalukhona apho kubalika ngokwanda.
Correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo mthana.
Now make me understand this. How is a refusal to negotiate, how does that in and of itself constitute an escalation in violence?
Awusichazele kokuba xa kuthi abazimiselanga ukuba kube uthethathethwano phakathi kwabo nalaba abanye loo nto yandisa kanjani izehlakalo zodushe.
Chairperson, when the negotiation resumes, those are the days that are being known that violence did go down. And those are the days that when we started negotiating with them, there was now an understanding between the police and the protesters. And that gave a hope of an amicable solution. But if that could not continue anymore, and the trust relationship was no more there, that could escalate violence.
Uthi General xa kukho uthethathethano lusaqhubeka phakathi kwabo nabanye kubakho ithemba lokuba lizokwehla izinga lodushe kodwa ke xa seyiphelele loo nto yiyo engahle yenze okokuba kuphakame ezi zehlakalo ezinodushe.
Had negotiations not already commenced when Mr. Twala was killed?
Xa kuzawusweleka umhlekazi uThwala bekungekho thethathethano laselukhona ngelo xesha.
It has commenced, Chairperson,
Laseliqalile uthethathethano.
but we don't know exactly when he was killed.
Kodwa kasinalo ulwazi kahle hle kokuba usweleke wabulawa nini.
Now look at the bullet points, your bullet points under paragraph 23, and just itemize those that you consider to be indicative of an escalation in violence between 6 a.m. and the meeting of 13:30 on the 16th. The meeting of 6 a.m. on the 16th of August and the JOCOM meeting at 13:30. Of your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points, which ones demonstrate that there had since been an escalation in the time period that I've referred to.
Ngokusponsa ke njengana kula maphuzu amahlanu owabeke apha ku paragraph 23 ukuba ngamaphi abonisa okokuba beziya ngokuwanda izehlakalo zodushe phakathi kuka 6 no 1300 hours ngalome.
And General, please don't explain each one of them. Just say first bullet, second bullet, and so on. Just itemize the bullet
Awutsho
points.
nje okokuba ileli neli ungawachazi.
I just want to know, I should start with the first bullet.
No, General, no, I am saying, because I understood your answer, maybe I misunderstood you. I understood your answer when I asked you, when you motivated to the provincial commissioner that stage 3 be proceeded to or with, did you consider that there had since been an escalation, or were you not at all relying on an escalation? I understood you to give an answer that sort of suggested that there was partly escalation and partly some other factors as well. That's how I understood you. Maybe I misunderstood you. But let's focus on the fact that you did, in your answer, say that escalation was also a factor. Now, what I'm saying is this. Of the bullet points that we see under paragraph 23, just tell us which ones are indicative of an escalation. It's bullet point 1, bullet point 3, 4, and 5. Just tell us which ones indicate that between 6 a.m. on the 16th and 13:30 on the same day there had since been an escalation. Just itemize them. Do you understand me now?
Uyandiva kakuhle ngokugeneral kokuba wolethe nje elo bullet point lelo phuzo kokuba leli endiye ndarepota ku-provincial commissioner okokuba lingahle lenze okokuba ukuphakama noma ukubanga ukwanda kwezihlakalo zodushe.
Not historically, between 6 a.m. and 13:30.
Andithethi ke ngento eyenzeka ngokwesichelo, ndithetha ngento eyenzeka ngalawo mini phakathi ka-6 no-1.
Papa One had reported that the mood of the crowd and had changed for the worse, and I feared that they might take their frustrations out on innocent bystanders.
Eli lesithathu aphathetha khona ngengxelo eyavela kupapa 1 okokuba kukho ukuguquka kwabantu phaya noloyiko lokuba bangahle bakhuphele okukubhila kwabo kwabanye abantu abakhona apho kuhlaleni.
There were already threats that had been made against the police that morning.
Kwase kukhona nokuthi ngaloo ntsasa kwaba khona ugrogriswa kwamapolisa iphuzu lesihlanu.
Yes, Chairperson, then that is an indicative of the kicking of the history, which of course is in the middle bullet of people were being attacked, maimed and killed by these protesters for going to work. And there was always the danger and risk of further killings because the employer and employees continue to refuse talking to each other.
Uthi kusuka apho ke xa ujonga umva izinto ibese zenzakele kwase kukho abantu abaye bahlaselwa apho kuye kukho abantu abaye banzakaliswa abanye babaqhankqalaza baye emsebenzini babebethwa kwakukho ke nebungozi kokuba ngahle kwenzeke kubekho abanye abantu abazawubulawa ngoba uthethathethwano phakathi komqeshi nomsebenzi ngalusachubeki.
Now let us, so only 2 of the 5 were indicative of an escalation. Now let us deal with the third one, which is the first one that you say was so indicative. I want to take you to slide 114 of Exhibit L. In fact, General, let me rather say I'm dealing with both, because even the last one, there were already threats that had been made against the police that morning. In a sense, the two are related, so I'm dealing with both. Can I take you to slide 114, Exhibit L.
Make sijonge phaya ku-exhibit L, slide 114.
I found it, Chairperson.
Thank you. Do you see the little calendar page in that slide? You see that 15 is highlighted, and that to me means that was on the 15th of August. Do you see that?
Uyabona uGeneral okokuba phaya ku
Or rather, the slide is dealing with the 15th of August.
imini yange-15 zaKhosi.
Yes, Chairperson, I see
Ewe,
it
ndiyabona.
is dealing with the 15th of August.
Ndiyabona uba ithetha ngezehlakalo zemini ze-15 zika-August.
Look at the second bullet in hyphenated form, which reads, the protesters' behavior was becoming more aggressive and the senior command of the SABC put emphasis on negotiations.
Uyabona apho kuthiwa khona ukuziphatha kwabaqhankqalazi kuya kuba nodushe kodwa ke abapolisa amakhulu iikomanda ezi zilokhu zinyanzelela ukuba makubekho uthethathethana.
Do you see that?
Uyayibona lo?
Correct, Chairperson, I see it.
Ewe ndiyayibona.
Let me next take you to slide 118, same date.
Asiya ku-slide 118 ngayo lo mini.
And under the first bullet, the following appears. The representative stated that they wanted the telephone number of the commander of the operation, and if present, he/she had to come forward, as they wanted to provide him/her with the telephone number of their advocate Shapiro. The representatives were informed that the request would be forwarded to the JOC for a decision to be made. At this point, one of the representatives, I emphasize this, became very aggressive and stated that the police should not be there and that the people in the hippos, referring to the armored vehicles, would die there and not one Nyala would leave that ground. See that as well?
Uyayibona ke apho ithetha khona okokuba abanye beenkokheli bathi bafuna izinamba ze-telephone number ze-commander ephethe le operation okokuba ize apho ngoba bafuna ukumnika inamba yommeli wabo advocate Shapiro. Wabe sethi ke kuye kwacaca okokuba aba bantu baya ngokubila baze wathi omnye wabo ezi zihippo fanele zisuke apha bafuna amapolisa apho xa bengasuki ezi zihippo azinawufumana ithuba lokuba zihambe apho azinawusuka apho bazawubulawa apho abo bantu.
Yes, Chairperson, I can see it.
Can I next take you to slide 122, still the same date? And
Asiya ku-slide 122.
there are times reflected there. I'm specifically referring you to 1715.
Ngayo lo mini ixesha ngo5:15, 17:15.
The following appears. The delegation of 3, including the president of NUM, were taken to the copy to allow them to address the crowd, but they were chased away before they could say anything. The crowd was very aggressive. The Nyala was withdrawn and the NUM delegation left the copy.
Ngeli xesha ke kuya aba benumba abathathu bathi xa befika phaya bahambe bekopini bathethe bayiswa phaya ngenyala izihlwele ezizangafuni tu ukuthetha nabo zibabilela kwade kwadinga ukuba inyala leyo isuke ihambe.
And lastly, slide 123, still under the same date.
Siya kwislide esilandelayo 1 2 3 ngayo lo mini.
And may I refer you to the third bullet? The following appears. AMCU spoke to the crowd. The crowd was still aggressive, but reacted positively to the leadership.
Xa iAMCU ke iyothetha nezihlwele phaya bathi noma kwakusenjalo imoya isiphakeme kodwa ke aba bamamela inkokeli zeAMCU.
Now, what I want to find out or understand, General, is this. If you say on the 16th the mood had changed and there were threats of violence, there already were threats of violence on the 15th, and I've referred you to quite a number of entries in SABC's own exhibit as to what had happened on the 15th. What was new?
Into endiyibuzayo ke General uthi uthetha ngemini yena yange-16 okokuba imbangela yayo yonke lento kokuba kwakho uphakama kwezehlakalo ezi zasezikhona kusuka njengoba bendikubonisa nje kwintsuku ezingaphambilini ezininzi yintoni yayintsha apha.
Especially if you look at what appears under 118, the threat going so far as to say at this point one of the representatives became very aggressive and stated that the police should not be there and that the people in the hippos would die there and not one Nyala would leave that ground. What made the threats or aggression of the 16th any different?
Ngoku ke xa sijonga kakhulu 118 apho omnye wezinkokheli zabaqhankqalazi waye wathetha ngendlela ethi xa kungenjalo ezihippo azinawufumana nethuba lokuba zisuke apho kuzawubulawa wonke umuntu ophayo phakathi yintoni eyabanga phezulu koku.
Chairperson, earlier than that, there was a negotiation between the police, and they did talk to the police, even before that.
Phambi koko
But
kwakho
also to
umthethwathethwano.
answer to the question, it will be the presidents of both. They will still have to give us feedback, which they did give us feedback on the evening of the 15th. And also now the president of AMCU, we still have to give him the chance for the 16th.
Uthi kwakusekho uthethathethwano lwaqhubeka ngexesha ngoba ipresident zombini zaziyile phaya eAMCU nomi yabuye yabaxelela eAMCU yayisezawuphinda iphinde izise ingxelo kubo.
Debated it with him, yeah. General, I think it was the first day or maybe even the second day when you gave your evidence in chief. At some point, being led by my learned friend, Mr. Ngalwana, you seemed to suggest that the decision was yours. But yesterday, my impression is that you eventually accepted that the decision to proceed to stage 3 was in fact the provincial commissioners, and that all you did was to take a decision to go to her and motivate for stage 3 to be proceeded with. I hope I understood you correctly. Did I?
Ngoba ndakuva kakuhle General xa usithi imini yesibini ubuzwa ngumhlekazi uNgalwana wathi isigqibo sasenziwe nguwe kodwa ke izolo uthe xa uthetha wathi isigqibo senziwa uprovincial commissioner into kwakudinga ukuba uyenze wena ukumikisa ingxelo kuyena kube uye owenza esi sigqibo kunjalo.
Chairperson, before I answer the question, may I be taken to my evidence when I was talking about the matter so that we read it there, if that the commission can allow?
Hayi ngandivumela iCommission ndifuna ukuba ndibone obomnqina ndimnikezile xa ndisitsho njalo.
Because I understand that
Sounds a reasonable request. It sounds a reasonable request. If it can be done,
Hayi ngenziwa loo nto.
I ask that it be done. I don't think you're unfair or unreasonable in asking for it.
okay, because Chairperson, I realize that the more I explain, the more as if I'm making more confusion. So maybe it will be better that what I've testified, it put before the commission, then I explain it while it is being read there.
Ngicela ukuba ndifundele le nto ngoba
Thanks, Chairperson.
What passages in your evidence are you particularly referring to? The reason I ask you that question is that Mr. Madlanga has referred to two passages in your evidence. Firstly, your evidence on, I think he said he thinks it's the second day, it may have been the first, of your evidence in chief, where Mr. Ngudulwana was leading your evidence. And then he referred also to a passage yesterday when I put to you my impressions of the earlier evidence, and you then said something which he's now summarized to you. Now, which do you want, or do you want both? Do you want the passage from your evidence in chief and the passage from yesterday's evidence when I was questioning you about it? I'm not sure whether that transcript's available yet, but I'm sure with Mr. Madlanga, with the assistance of Ms. Pillay, we'll be able to find the relevant passages in the transcript and read them to you. He may not be able to do it immediately, but I'm sure he will do it at some stage. And it's only fair that you should answer the supplementary questions he asks based on that evidence after it's been read to you. Okay? Is that
uzawufundela
acceptable?
zona bazakufumana uphenduleke emva kokuba usuzibonile kunjalo ewe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I attempt to obviate the need for that and the likely delay by perhaps approaching it in this fashion, General? And I assume, this is on the assumption that you know what in fact happened. General, can you, I know it's asking you a question that you were asked previously, but it's just to avoid going back to the transcript now. Can you tell us, was it your decision or was it the provincial commissioner's decision that SABS should now proceed to stage 3?
Mandubuza lo mbuzo ulake general uzokwazi ukuba mhlawumbe singayi kula makebo othetha ngawo. Kwakungisigqibo sikabani sokuba kungene kwinyathelo lesithathu sesakho ikane nesika provincial commission.
And General, can you, just to avoid what you yourself just referred to as, you trying to explain more, that more explanation seems to give rise to confusion. Just to avoid that, can you please just try to avoid explanation on this one? It was my decision. It was the provincial commissioner's decision. Can you please just give an answer along those lines?
Yazame ukuphepha ke incazelo lende kufaka engxakini general. Uphendule nje ngokuba hayi kwakusisigqibo sami kanene hayi bekusigqibo sika provincial commission.
It was my decision.
Kwakusesami.
Whose decision was it?
It was my decision.
It was your decision.
Uthi kwakusesakhe isigqibo general.
Can I take you to paragraph 18, triple G5, and that's the statement of the Provincial Commissioner General Mbombo.
Siya kwi-statement uG5 ingxelo kaGeneral Mbombo khasini lesihlanu.
I think it's and then I think from here let's go to where she actually says at 13:30.
Okay.
Where's 13:30?
I got it, Chairperson.
Ndiphethe apha kumhle.
Paragraph number?
19, just show me that one. No, 18, Mr. Chairman. Let's go there. The following appears there, General. On Wednesday, the 15th of August, 2012, while I was attending the National SABC Management Forum meeting in Midrand, Johannesburg, I received telephonic feedback from Major General Mbembe to the extent that there has been an agreement between AMCU and SABC that the following day at 9, the protesters shall lay down weapons and disperse peacefully. I took the opportunity to apprise the National Commissioner of the situation in Marikana, and that if negotiation efforts fail, I shall instruct members to disperse, disarm, and possibly arrest the protesters. General, that plainly means that as at the evening of 15 August 2012, the Provincial Commissioner had already taken a decision that if the promised disarmament did not take place on the 16th, she would order that stage 3 be proceeded with. Do you accept that? That's the plain meaning of this paragraph.
Uyavuma okokuba le paragraph ithetha loo nto okokuba kusihla nge-15 zika-August 22 provincial commissioner wayesenze isigqibo sokuba xa ingabi impumelelo lento yokuba kukho uthethathethane ukubeka phansi izixhobo uza kwenza isigqibo sokokuba abasakazi bahlukaniswe.
Chairperson, as I said, it was my decision, and I also went to the provincial commissioner. It was on the 16th.
Njengoba ndisitsho kwakusesami
In this statement, I don't deny what the provincial commissioner she's saying, but I was not there with her when she actually took that decision, and I was not appraised that she has already taken a decision. Me, as an overall commander, I did what I was supposed to do on the 16th, as I did informed her on the previous day.
ndandingekho xa yenza esigqibo uprovincial commissioner akandixelanga nalento mna ndenza esigqibo njengo-overall commander lento yayisemagxeni am.
That's not answering my question. My question is, do you agree with the meaning that I ascribe to this passage? Do you agree that it means what I said or suggested it means? Do you agree with that, General?
Umbuzo kokuba uyavumelana nami ukuba le ntetho ethethwa nguprovincial commissioner apha isho le nto ndiyithetha ukuba esigqibo wayesesenzile.
No, I agree, Chairperson, but I was just explaining my actions and what I said to the commission.
Ndichaza ke mna ukuba yintoni endayenza nokuthi ndathini kuye.
So you're saying you were not privy to this decision taken by the Provincial Commissioner on the 15th?
Correct, Chairperson, because she was at the management meeting and I was not there. And I was informing her on the telephone, and I was keeping her abreast in terms of what was happening on the ground.
Wayephaya kwi-management meeting e-Midrand ndandingekho ke mna apho ndandilapha phantsi ndiloku ndimxelela nje umnxeba ndimxelela ukuba kwenzeka ntoni nantoni ndandingekho xa enza esi sigqibo ndingasaziyo.
General, you taking the decision to proceed to stage 3, that's something quite crucial, is it not?
General, ukwenza kwakho ke eso sigqibo sokuba kungene kule nto kwakuyinto eyayinzulu gqitha kunjalo ewe.
Why is it that you do not mention that you took this very crucial decision in your initial statement, G 12? Why do you not mention that?
Intoni ungayivezanga kwi-statement sakho sokuqala le nto esi sigqibo esibaluleke gqitha ngolu hlobo okokuba wena wenza eso sigqibo?
Chairperson, with regard to the briefing to the provincial commissioner, that was before the 13:30. I did also mention it in many issues, but somehow it couldn't appear in my G 12. But also I did indicate some of the things that I did do, which did not also appear in my statements.
Zininzi ke izinto endazichaza apha ezazenzeka ndisisho ezingaveli apha kwi-statement sami sokuqala.
General, even in paragraph 23 for that matter, you are just saying you briefed the provincial commissioner about the need to move to implement stage 3. You do not say, I briefed the provincial commissioner on the decision that I had taken that SABC should proceed to stage 3. Why is it that you again do not mention this very crucial decision? And remember, in your supplementary statement, you are actually adding to, supplementing your previous statements. Why is it that not once do you mention this very crucial decision? in two detailed statements, the two-type statements. Why is it?
Kuzo zombini ezi statement general ayiveli lento nakwesisesibini apho buchaza khona izinto bokuwazichaza kwesocala lento ibaluleke gqitha ngolhlobo ayiveli apha kokuba wenza eso sigqibo njengoba usitsho apha ukuba waxelela uprovincial commissioner ngesidingo sokuba kuyawunyanzeleka ukuba kungenwe kwinyathelo lesithathu ungatsho kokuba ususenzile eso sigqibo.
Chairperson, as a matter of fact, I did brief the Provincial Commissioner and I said to her on the 16th, we have arrived to a stage where that we have to go to stage 3.
Ndamxelela uprovincial commissioner
And
nge-16
I don't want to blame anyone, but I can put that there are some also of the other issues that I was keeping on communicating about them, but they do not appear in my statement.
akukho mnisholayo ke kodwa zininzi ezinye izinto ndazithetha ezingaveli apha kwi-statement sam.
So you're referring to a conversation you had with her about 1 p.m., 1300, as you'd say. Is that right?
Correct, Chairperson. That is the one that is between 13 and 13:30.
Tell me, did you go to the press conference that she addressed at 9:30?
Wawukhona phaya xa ethetha nabezindaba intatheli ngo-9:30?
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe ndandikhona.
What did she say there?
Wathini apho provincial commission?
Chairperson, what she indicated, she also indicated that with the various factors, not quoting her personally, maybe we can look at the press statement, is that on that day, considering what has to take place in terms of either voluntariness or any other thing, the situation will be resolved.
Ndithi mhlawumbe xa singajonga i-statement sakhe esasenza kuba amaphephandaba ke wathetha izinto ezininzi ukuba noma kuyavunyelwana noma kanjani kodwa ke ngalowo mini kuzawuba yimini apho izawugqitywa le nto.
Can I take you to paragraph 40 of G12, your statement? Uh, 40 tie. Yes, ma'am. And here, General, this is just to demonstrate that this is a subject that was being dealt with. You are actually dealing with a subject of the decision and what is taking place. And this is what you say in this paragraph. At about 13:30, the chairperson of Special JOCO, Major General Anandale, acting on the instruction of the Provincial Commissioner, called a special JOCO meeting to evaluate the current strategy and the possible implementation of stage 3. Present at that meeting were, and you refer to the people that were present, the Provincial Commissioner, Lieutenant General Mbombo, briefed the JOCOM on her engagement with the President of AMCU, Mr. Joseph Matunjwa, to resolve the situation. You say possible implementation of stage 3. You do not say for the discussion of the decision that I had taken that stage 3 be proceeded with. Can you explain that?
Ungakwazi ukuyichaza ke le nto okokuba le nto wayithetha phaya kule meeting okokuba kungahle kuthethwe ngento yokokuba kungenwe kwistage sesithathu ungaxeli okokuba sekwenziwe isigqibo ngelo xesha okokuba kungenwe utsho nabantu babekhona apho bonke.
Chairperson, possible implementation, and I did indicate in my earlier evidence, which I requested that I need to be provided with my evidence. When one has made a decision as an overall commander, it has to be ratified and confirmed in the special meeting. And that is what I'm indicating, and I did indicate that if when this is presented to the 1330 meeting, and there are other factors which can change, that could have happened. And that's why I'm saying possible implementation. Not that it is going to be implemented, because I know that I did brief the provincial commissioner, and this is what General at this stage I am thinking. And this is how I've decided to say we can implement stage 3.
Into enjengalena xa ndiyithatha njenge-overall commander ndenza esigqibo kufanele okokuba simikiswe kwintlanganiso enjenga apho sizawuvunywa khona ngabanye xa kukho izinto ezithize mhlawumbe ezingahle zivele apho zingahle zenze okokuba kukho uguquko kweso sigqibo sesithetho yiko nje sisebenzisa eligama elithi into engahle yenzeke.
You do not only fail to mention that you yourself had taken a decision, but you also fail to mention that what was happening at 1330 was the ratification of your decision. Can you explain that?
Awuchazi ke apha okokuba ubusosithethe esigqibo awuchazi uthi abakwakuye uthethwa ngesigqibo owawuya kusithatha mayichaza leyo nto.
Chairperson, when one goes to the meeting, everybody has got his own opinion. You put matters, you say this is what I am at the stage.
Xa kuyiwa entlanganisweni ke wonke umunye umuntu uza nemibono yakhe ayibeke ngaphambili.
And if that is confirmed, it's the same way when you debate the plan. And if all of us then we agree,
xa kukho ukuvumelana ke apho sivumelana sonke kunjengokuba xa kubhalwa icebo iplan phansi.
And again, Chairperson, this is what I'm saying. When one is explaining actually the process, it's where maybe the confusion comes. But what I'm saying is, I did really take a decision, go to the provincial commissioner, briefed her, and then we went to the meeting.
Into endiyithethayo kokuba ndasendisithethe nyani isigqibo ndaya ku-provincial commissioner emva koko ke kwasekuyiwa kule ntlanganiso.
Now let me take you to paragraph 41 of the same statement, and this is what you say. After evaluating the situation and based on reports on the ground, the provincial commissioner instructed the special JOCOM to proceed with the implementation of stage 3 of the operational plan. Dispersion into smaller groups and settlement and disarming. The operation was scheduled to start at 15:30.
Uthi ke umhlekazi uMadlanga ugqibele apho nje general xa siya ku paragraph 41 uyachubeka uthi uprovincial commissioner nguyena wakhupha umyalelo kuJOCOM okokuba makuqhutshekwe kungene apha kwinyathelo lesithathu.
General,
kuzawuthi ke aba bantu bahlukaniswe babe ngamacala amancinci bahangwe baboshwe.
General, I suggest to you that based on the total or the lack of, rather on your failure in both type statements to mention that you actually took a decision on proceeding to stage 3. And what you say in paragraph 41, I suggest to you that it is quite plain that 1, you never took any such decision, and 2, that in fact it was the provincial commissioner's decision to proceed to stage 3. What do you say to that?
Iveka kuwe kokuba kungachazi kwakho kuzo zombini estatements akho siqala nesibini ngalendlela ukuba sathatha nguwe esisigqibo nalento ivela apha ku page 41 ye statements akho ndibeka kokuba umuntu owenza esisigqibo ngu provincial commissioner uthini kulonto.
I do not agree, Chairperson, but with regard to the issue of the instruction, I think Major General Enendale also testified. I was present, and I do agree with what he's saying.
Kandi si umva uMajor General Enendale wanikeza ukungqina naye apha ndivumelana naye kulonto ayithethe.
I next refer you to paragraph 19.4 of General Mbombo's statement, which I referred you to earlier, G5. And I want to suggest to you that what she says there, in fact, ties in with what she says in the paragraph I referred you to earlier, what she said, yes, in fact, yes. My apologies, commissioners. What she says in paragraph 19.4 ties in with the last paragraph that I read from your own statement.
Lento ethethwa nguGeneral Mbombo apha ke ku-paragraph 19.4 kwi-statement sakhe ivumelana ngqa nalento ithethwa nguwe apha kule statement endigqiba kukufundela sona.
Which was paragraph 41 of your statement.
Apha ku-paragraph 41 ye-statement sakho iyavumelana le ntetho.
And let me read what she says.
Mandikufundele yona ke Mhlekazi.
During the job meeting at 13:30, I received a briefing that the protesters at the copy have not laid down their dangerous weapons. In the light thereof, I then gave the instruction that the protesters must be dispersed and disarmed, and arrest be effected on those who might offer resistance thereto. This is commonly referred to as stage 3 in the plan. I left the JOC meeting to visit the injured subs member at Rustenburg Hospital. Do you agree that this actually ties in with what you say in paragraph 41 of your statement?
Uyavumelana General nale ntetho endibeka kuwe okokuba apha achaza khona okokuba kule meeting ye-JOC ngo-13:30 wafumana ingxelo yokokuba aba bacankalazi phaa entabeni basaziphethe izixhobo zabo ezizinobungozi. Wabe sethi ke ndinikeza ka umyalelo kokuba xa kunjalo ke makuyiwe bahlukaniswe aba bantu bathathelwe izixhobo baboshwe abo ekufanele wathi lento ilento ebizwa ngokuba licebo umgangatho wesithathu wale plan njengoba ibhaliwe. Wabe sesuka apho eseya esibhedlela eyobona aba babenzakele imember ipolisa elenzakele.
I agree, Chairperson.
Ndiyavumelana na.
And do you agree also that it is actually consonant with what she said in paragraph 18, which is that she said to the National Commissioner, if on the 15th in the evening, if on the following day the protesters did not disarm, she would order that stage 3 be proceeded to. The two tie in, or the two are consonant. Do you agree with that?
Uyavumelana ke nentetho abeyenze nge-15 apho exela khona uNational Commission okokuba isigqibo endiza kuyithatha ke ngomso xa kungenzeki lento eyenzekayo okokuba kungenwe kumgangatho wesithathu apha usenikeza umyalelo ukuba makungenwe kuwo. Uyavumelana ukuba ziyahambelana ezintetho ezimbini?
Yes, Chairperson. The only way, the only thing that I wanted the Commission should know is that what did I do as an overall commander?
Phela kwento benifuna ukuba iCommission iyazi okokuba mna ndenze ntoni njenge-overall commander.
And I also said that when the National Commissioner on the 15th said she took already a decision, I was not with her, and I did not know at that stage.
Esithi uCommissioner wenze isigqibo ke aphaya nge-15 ndandingekho naye kulo meeting bendingazi ngaloo ntetho.
Do I understand your evidence that as the overall commander, that even though you took this decision, it was not the last word? You had to put this decision to the special JOCOM meeting?
Ndikuva kakuhle ukuthi noma wena njenge-overall commander ubusesenzile isigqibo beyingapheleli apho kufanele ukuba uyigqithise iye kwi-special JOCOM meeting.
Correct, Chairperson. As I indicated earlier on, firstly to the Provincial Commissioner because I report to her, and also at the JOCOM meeting, which of course, as a senior person, since I've briefed her, I understand that will also be filtering to the special JOCOM meeting.
And the first time you convey this decision of yours to anyone is around 1300 hours when you spoke to the Provincial Commissioner?
Correct, Chairperson.
Ngelo xesha uthe uxelela uProvincial Commissioner okokuqala uthe uGeneral kufanele noma emxelela uGeneral uProvincial Commission igqithiselwe kuJOCOM special.
But you were present at the press conference, the media conference, at 9:30, where she said that if the arms aren't laid down today, we're going to proceed to deal with the situation, which could in the circumstances only have meant we're going to implement stage 3, isn't that so?
andithi wakhona kulaa meeting phaya nabezindaba ngo-9:30 xa esenza le ntetho yokokuba xa zingabekwa phantsi izixhobo namhlanje sakuyigqiba le nto.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe ndandikhona.
She already made the decision that if they don't lay down their arms today, we're going to implement stage 3. She made the decision and she told the media that she'd done so in your presence at 9:30. That's right.
Ndithi wayexelela imedia bonke bezindaba ngo9:30 ngaloo mtsasa okokuba esi sigqibo sendisenziwe.
Yes.
Correct, Chairperson. That's what I heard.
Ewe ndayiva loo ntetho mhleka.
It wasn't really necessary for you to make a decision yourself because the Provisional Commissioner had already made the decision and he communicated it to the world via the press who were at the media conference, isn't that right?
Kwakungasekho sidingo general uba wenze esinye isigqibo ngoba uprovincial commissioner wayesenzile saxelela umhlaba wonke ngo9:30 okokuba isigqibo sakhe siyintoni.
Chairperson, as I said even earlier in my evidence, which I've requested that it should, I'm the overall commander and I report to her. And then that's what I communicated to her and that's what I wanted the commission should know.
Ndithe mna njenge-overall commander ndifuna icommissioner yazi okokuba yintoni bendiyenza njenge-overall commander ndiripota kuye ingako ke ndaxelela yena.
She's already made the decision, apparently. Told the world 9:30 she's made the decision. I could understand you saying to her later, by the way, I must tell you, I've independently come to the same conclusion. I know you've made the decision. I just want to tell you I agree with you for the following reasons. I can understand you doing that. But I can't understand, unless there's something that I can't see, how you can say that you made a decision in your capacity as overall commander when the provincial commissioner had already made that decision without apparently even communicating it to you until you heard it revealed by her at the 9:30 press conference. Those two things don't seem to stand together. You made the decision that sometime before 1 o'clock, that she'd already made the decision as provincial commissioner before 9:30. I'm sorry, I don't know, so perhaps you can explain it, but what I want to do now is I want to take a short comfort break because we've been sitting for nearly an hour and a quarter, and give you a chance to think about what I've put to you, and then you can give me your answer after we resume. We'll take a 5-minute comfort break.
Emva kokuba esethe ucommissioner masukumeni. Commission commences. Masukumen sonke.
Commission resumes. Before we carry on, I was going to say something about the families, but they're not here for a moment. Some of them are here, but not everyone. I'll wait until they come in to say something. Welcome the families back. I understand that the evidence that the Major General wanted to see has been found, and I don't know at what stage it can be shown to him, but it has now been found, I understand.
Not yesterday's, Mr. Chairman.
Not yesterday. Have we got yesterday's transcript yet?
Not yet, no.
I see. Oh, that's the problem. So they found the passage in your evidence in chief, but we haven't yet got yesterday's transcript, so that passage of the evidence isn't available yet. Anyway, you're still under oath, Major General?
Major General,
you wish to proceed with your cross-examination. I asked you a question, I think, and I said you could think about it during the comfort break. Are you in a position to give me an answer?
Uza kuthi ke emva kokuba aphendule lo mbuzo bebuzo wona enye into ayithetha ucommissioner umgcinisihlalo kokuba uzawuthetha nefamily xa sezifikile zisengapi khona kwangoku.
Chairperson, as I said earlier on, I did what I'm supposed to do as a overall commander to the provincial commissioner, and that's what I told the commission. Understanding also the hierarchy of the police, the provincial commissioner has no obligation to report back to me, but I have an obligation to report to her and to brief her about every task that she has delegated them to me.
Into bendiyibeka kwi-commission okokuba yazi okokuba mna njenge-overall commander bendisenza ntoni ke kodwa nomthetho ebekiwe imigaqo esebenza esipoliseni uprovincial commissioner akaripoti kum yonke into ayenzayo kodwa ke mna ndinyanzeleke ukuba yonke into endiyenzayo ndimxelele ngoba engaphezulu kwam.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Done with it. I'm moving back to the. Yeah. General, there were the two items that I asked you to consider overnight. I understand that you were furnished with a copy of the transcript of the inspection in local. That is the second inspection in local. I trust that you've gone through that.
Bendikucela okokuba ukhe ujonge i-transcripts ezi ze-inspection in local xa siye phaya kulaa ndawo yesehlakalo ndiyathemba okokuba uye wayijonga.
Correct, Chairperson, I did have a look at it.
Yes, and your evidence yesterday was that at the inspection in local, you did indicate that the police also had to protect a shaft which was somewhere to the left of the field through which the strikers were walking. Can you just draw the attention of the commission to where that appears in the transcript?
Makusibonise apha kwi-transcript apho uthi khona njengoba uthe izolo uye wayiveza le nto phaya kwi-inspection lokho wayithetha into yokuba amapolisa kwadinga uba akhusele ishaft le eyayiphaya ngasesandeni sokhohlo.
Chairperson, I've checked the transcript. It does not appear. But, so it means then I did not say it where it could be put in the transcript, but I did indicate to those that I was working with And I thought that is in the transcript, but it does not appear in the
okokuba
transcript.
izawuba khona mhlawumbe ndayithetha nabo ndandisebenza nabo ndangayithethi ngexesha apho izawuvezwa khona kule transcript.
So it is not in your statement of the 13th of August 2012, it is not in your statement G12, it is not in your statement H3, and it is not in this transcript.
Ngoku ke ayikho kwi-statement sakho sangomhla ka-13, ayikho kwi-statement sakho G12, ayikho kwi-statement sakho H, ayikho nakule transcript.
And lastly, it is not even in your evidence in chief.
Nakubungqina bakho ngeli xesha ubuzwa ngumhlekazi uNgalwana ayivelanga loo nto.
And do you want this commission to believe that on the day subs were also concerned about the protection of this shaft?
Funa ngoko okokuba i-commission ikholwe ngoko okokuba amapolisa ngaloo mini abejonge nokhuselo lale shaft othetha ngayo sasandeni Sokolo.
Chairperson, I did indicate that there were key areas which I was briefed about on the 13th that we should take into account.
Ekazi ndiye ndachaza okokuba xa ndibalisela ngale nto ke nge-13 ndaxelela ukuba kukho izindawo ezithize ezibalulekile ekudingeka ukuba sizikhusele.
And those key areas, it's informal settlement and the shaft of lawnmen, different types of shafts of lawnmen.
Ngathi ke ezo zindawo ndithetha ngazo zindawo zasekuhlaleni nempahla yasemayini ii-shafts.
Which would be targeted because of association with the lawnman mine.
Zazizawuhlasela ke ezinto ngoba ziyimpahla yemayini le i-lawnman.
Yes, Chairperson, I do agree that they do not appear in my statements, but those key areas I was briefed about, and that's what I was also taking into account throughout the operation.
Ewe kunjalo aziveli ke apha kwingxelo yam kodwa ke ndandixelele ngazo zizinto endandikhathalele okokuba mazikhuselwe.
General,
Mr. Mlanga, before you proceed, Commissioner Hemraj wants to put something on record. She was walking, I think, with the Major General at the inspection that we had. And he did say something in her presence, which is has not been recorded, but in fairness, she has a clear recollection of it. I think it's only right that she should.
Commissioner Hemraj kwinto afuna ukuyiveza uthi uyakhumbula ehamba no general.
and I will have the right to cross-examine the commissioner on that.
Indeed.
Uthi xa obomnqina vela ku-commissioner uza kuba nelungelo
Recollection
ajongise imibuzo kuye.
of the General saying that there was a Nyala that was stationed to the extreme left for the protection of a mine or shaft, and that Nyala came from the extreme left of the field towards where the protesters were. It is in that context that I remember that. I do know that at some stage we all were walking in different directions, and the persons who were recording it were at all times with the chairperson. So I don't know if it occurred at that time, but I do have a recollection of that, and I think it's only fair I say so.
Uthi ukhumbula ugeneral ehamba naye esho kokuba ihipo le yayihamba
In the nature of a prior consistent statement by the witness.
yayikhusele i-shaft eyayikhona apho.
In the light of an allegation of recent fabrication, this is admissible.
Thank you, Commissioner Hemraj.
Bulele Commissioner.
But, General, I will still make this submission. I want to suggest to you that what appears to be a belated mention of the protection of the shaft, that is only at the second inspection in loco. It's not mentioned in your statement of the 13th. It's not mentioned in G12. It's not even mentioned in Exhibit L. So I want to suggest to you that that belated mention, the plausible explanation for that is this. If, as your evidence suggests, what the police, and which you do mention in triple G12 was to flank the protesters so that they do not get onto or into the informal settlement, flank them on the right. You now suddenly see yourself having to explain why it is, if that was the case, why it is that you have a nyala to the left of the protesters. And I suggest to you that you then suddenly came up with this explanation. What do you say to that?
Uthi into eyenza kokuba uveze ngoku emva kwexesha elide kangako kokuba uzama ukuchaza kokuba linyala yayiphaya kwesandla sosokolo yayifuna ntoni apho ngikuveza lento ye shaft ngoba umnqina babuthe zaze hamba kweli cala langasesandleni sokunene ukuze kuthintele ukuba abantu bangangeni ezindaweni zokuhlala. Uthini apho General?
Chairperson, I will not agree with that statement in the sense that when I arrived on the 13th, I was briefed specifically by Brigadier Kalitz, who could tell me what were the history and the modus operandi of the protesters. And he even said, General, there are certain key areas which we have to protect because that's being targeted by the protesters as a result of disagreement. And he specifically mentioned the shafts, specifically mentions those that are reporting on duty, and whom at that stage on the 13th, I did not know where they are staying. Hence, I even explained to the commission to say, any settlement, whether it's informal or what, because we don't know who is sitting where and who is staying where, we have to protect it to ensure that those people are not injured or killed.
Uthi uGeneral andivumelana naleyo ntetho ngoba ekufikeni kwamphaya ngomhla ka13 ndafumana ingxelo ivela kuBrigadier Kalitz owandibalisela ukuba bekusenzeka ntoni phaya nokuba abaqhankqalazi baziphethe ngoluhlobo olinjani. Wandixelela ke okokuba kukho izindawo ezidinga ukuba zikhuselwe nezizathu zoko okokuba kukho ishaft nezindawo zokuhlala apho bangazi khona okokuba aba bantu abajongweyo bahlala phi.
Chairperson, I pause to point out that it's human. And I did indicate that I was coming from leave. I was so overwhelmed with what was happening. And I understand that some of the issues do not appear in my statement. But that I also indicated to the commission, to say that I was from leave and I was overwhelmed in terms of many issues that I had to deal with.
Njengoba ndishilo kokuba ndabizwa ndiselivini ke iyenzeka into enjengalena komnye nomnye umuntu kuba khona izinto ezithize angahle azilibale njengoba ndisitsho kokuba yandithathela phezulu lento yokuba ndifumane lento isenzeka ngolhlobo yaseyikulo ngelo xesha.
The second issue that I asked you to consider overnight was pre-Potchefstroom meeting statements that state that whilst walking in the field, the protesters suddenly changed direction and proceeded towards the informal settlement. Were you able to find any? I'm quite mindful, General, I'm quite mindful of the fact that there are many sub-dockets on this subject, and there's also the huge IP docket that even to this day one cannot really claim to have gone through fully. So I'm quite mindful of that. But based on what you could do or manage, were you able to find any such statements?
Into endibuze endiye ndacela okokuba uyijonge izolo General ilento yokokuba kuthe kusahanjwa apho aba baqhankqalazi basebejika ke besijikela kwesandla sekunene sebaya ungena ekuhlaleni pha ematshotshombeni. Uye wayifumana loo nto kwimibhalo kumaxwebhu akhona. Ndiyazi okokuba maninzi gqitha iidokethe zamapolisa namadokethe e-IPD mhlawumbe amanye osengewafumana. Ikho into oyifumeneyo?
Chairperson, I need to explain. My understanding was that I should check any statement prior Potchefstroom that talks about the shaft. But now that I understand you and I did that work, which points out the informal settlement. In my process of checking that one, I did come across a statement of Colonel Merafe that talks about maybe it will also be checked here. I drove with my vehicle, that is paragraph 19, Colonel Merafe statement.
Dated what?
Ndifumene lento kwi-statements ka-Captain Merafe uzawuba ikhasi le
This exhibit GGG 15
ezike exhibit GGG 15
is a statement by Lieutenant Colonel Merafe, which is exhibit GGG 15. Is that the statement from which you're reading?
Yes,
Which
it's
paragraph
correct.
are you reading?
ufunda kwi-statements ka-Colonel Merafe.
You're reading paragraph 18, which reads, when the miners saw that we are not going to act against them and allow them to proceed, they stood up and continued with the march in the direction of the informal settlement.
Yes.
Major General Mpembe instructed us to follow the miners on foot. He was also walking with them. He further instructed POP members with 2 Inyalas to go to the front of the march and to stop them from entering the informal settlement. Is that the paragraph you're referring to?
Yes, Chairperson.
That's a statement dated the 20th of December.
Yes, but I understand that is one that is before, it's after Potchefstroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Before
Esi statement
Potchefstroom,
senzeka phambi
there is
kwe-Potchefstroom.
no statement before Potchefstroom.
Akukho statement esithetha lento ngaphambi kokuba kuyiwe e-Potchefstroom. Esi sikaMerafe senziwa
Well, in fairness to you, that's not quite right, because I found one. Exhibit GGG 17, which is a statement of Lieutenant Colonel Vermaak, dated the 30th of August. And in the fourth paragraph near the end, 6 lines from the foot of that paragraph, he of course was in the helicopter. And he says, met ons aankomst het ons opgemerkt dat die groep deur die veld alreeds begin loop het in die rigting van 'n informele nedersetting. With our arrival, we noticed that the group had already begun walking through the veld in the direction of an informal settlement. En die, ons het om die groep gesirkel met die helikopter en die groep het rustig aangeloop en die polisiemanne versprei agter die groep miners. We circled around the group with the helicopter, and the group was peacefully walking on, and the police was spread out behind the group of miners. Ons het nie direk oor die groep gevlieg nie, omrede dit veilig is om eerder wye cirkels te maak. We didn't fly directly over the group because it's safe rather to make wide circles. Ons het opgemerk dat iemand onbekend aan ons aan die regte flank. We noticed that someone unknown to us on the right flank, a traangranaat afgevuur het, fired off a tear gas grenade, is it? In die rigting van die groep, in the direction of the group, wat die pad wou oorsteek, who wished to cross the road, om sodoende te verhoed, in that way to prevent dat hulle in die informele plakkerskamp inbeweeg, to prevent them, in that way to prevent them from moving into the informal squatter camp. That's what he said in that statement. He had, however, made a statement earlier on the 16th of August, which is it's I'm not sure it's an exhibit actually, but it's in the bundle of documents that we were given by the evidence leaders. It's the one we referred to earlier. I think it's A16, isn't it? No, we didn't refer to it. Anyway, it's A16 in the relevant docket. And in that statement, he doesn't mention this at all, as far as I can see. That's a statement dated the 16th of August. So,
intetho kaMhlekazi uFermaak ayenzanga ngomhla ka-16 ku-August phambi kokuba kuyiwe phaya echaza kokuba babehamba ngehelicopter babona ntoni.
I'm not sure what its probative value is, but to be fair to you, there is a statement pre-Potchefstroom which makes that allegation. But of course, it's more than a fortnight after the event, and it's not recorded in the contemporaneous statement of the witness made only 3 days later.
Mr. Chairman, may I beg to differ? I actually saw that statement prior to my cross-examination of the witness yesterday, the first one you referred to. Like I also saw the one of the 16th. And once I saw that the first one you referred to was an August statement, I immediately thought it might well be pre-Potchefstroom. But I then went to the transcript, and because it was difficult for me to get the notices of the meetings, I wasn't quite sure where to find them. I went to the evidence of General Annandale, and at page 8362, lines 4 to 6, he testifies that Potchefstroom was on 27 August 2012 to 6 September 2012.
I must confess error and withdraw my statement that statement was
And Ms. Pillay,
pre-Potchefstroom.
thank you, Mr. And Ms. Pillay has just referred me to a call-up notice, triple G3, and indeed the first date indicated there is the 27th of August. So, General, your answer that there is no or at least you have not found any pre-Potchefstroom statement stands.
Ngoku ke inyani lento kokuba akho statement esithetha ngalento.
My attempt to help the witness, I'm afraid, has to be withdrawn in the circumstance.
ePotchefstroom umhlekazi uMadlanga uye walungisa apho bekuthetha khona umgcini sihlalo kokuba le ntetho kaFermake yayithetha ngalento lena yenziwa kwavela kokuba inhlangano yasePotchefstroom njengoba kwakubeka umhlekazi uAnnandale yaqala mhla ka-27 ku-August kuba esi statement senzeke emva koko.
At last, General, I'm stepping off the events of the 13th of August, and I'm moving to something new altogether.
Igqibile ke ngezehlakalo zomhla ka-13 August General ndawugqithela kwenye ke into ngoku.
Can I take you to paragraph 18 of your supplementary statement, triple H3. You say, I am advised that there is criticism for lack of detail with regard to stages 4 to 6 of the plan. The simple reason for this is that stage 4 self-evidently involved the processing of people who had been arrested and the management of the crime scene. And what follows is what I want to emphasize, General. The detail in relation to the implementation of stages 5 and 6 depended on the intelligence we would have received from the arrested persons during stage 4. As it happens, we received very useful intelligence from some of the people who were arrested, and that intelligence has been followed up to make further arrests, thus preventing further loss of life and damage to property. General, do you agree that the part that I emphasized must mean that for as long as stages 3 and 4 of the operational plan had not been implemented, there could be no application for a stage 6 coordinate search with specific an application for a coordinate search with specific dates and times? Do you agree with that?
Uvumelana nami ke apho okokuba nge-statement sakho beningakwazi okokuba ningagqithela kwinyathelo lesine ningekagqithi kweli lesithathu apho kuzawuhanqwa khona abantu ekuhlaleni bayosesha kufumane izinto kubo.
Chairperson, I'm requesting that the question should be repeated.
Okay, maybe let me take a step back.
Ukuba ubuzwa futhi lo mbuzo.
Yesterday, General, you testified that in the evening of the 15th August 2012, at the debriefing session with the union leaders, you did not know that the police would proceed to stage 3 the following day. Do you remember saying that yesterday?
Yakhumbula usithi kusihlwa mhla ka-15 August ubungenalo lwazi okokuba kuzawugqithela kulo mgangatho wesithathu.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe kunjalo.
Now, what I'm trying to establish from what you are saying here, and in a sense it ties in with the evidence that you've just confirmed, is this. Now, if you do not know, or perhaps let me ask this first, stage 6 is to follow upon arrests which are going to feed you with certain information which you require for the purposes of stage 6. Do you accept that?
Uma kokuba apha kuthethwa khona ngomgangatho wesithandathu kwakula kuzawulandela khona emva kokuba sebahlakaziwe aba bantu balandele ezindaweni zabo bayobanjwa kuze kufunyane ingxelo kubo.
Not accepted.
Andivumelani nalo.
Explain yourself.
Awuchaze ke mhle.
The arrest.
Do you yes.
The arrest started since Monday, and as long as there is any arrest that has been made, people should be interviewed by detectives. That information that is obtained by detectives is followed up. So it's not necessarily only on the dispersal. It's any arrest that could be made which could assist us in terms of getting more information where people are staying. Maybe it's an understanding of the chronology of the stages.
General,
but in my understanding, Chairperson, if I may be given chance to explain myself, is that since Monday, there were arrests that were made. And that information, which is the one that I'm speaking about, which was crucial and assisted us in terms of even implementing the coordinate search.
Uthi ugeneral andithethi ngabantu bebezawubanjwa emva kokuba kuye kwahlakazwa ezi zihlwele ezazikhona apho ndithetha ngabantu babebanjwe kusuka ngomsombuluko ngomvulo aba bantu babebanjiwe babebuzwa imibuzo kuvele ingxelo ilandelwe loo nto.
General, in general terms, that explanation might make sense, but not in the light of what you say. This is what you say.
Intetho yakho ivela ngolu hlobo ingahambelani nale nto uyichaza ngoku general ithi
the detail in relation, I'm again reading from paragraph 18, the detail in relation to the implementation of stages 5 and 6 depended on the intelligence we would have received from the arrested persons during stage 4.
apha uthi khona into beniza kuyilandela emva kokuba sekwenziwe lokhu kuhlakazwa ke ningene kumgangatho wesihlanu nowesithupha apho kuzawulandela khona aba bantu babanjwe apho.
You are not talking about information received from people arrested even earlier than stage 4. Stage 4 which would follow the dispersal action in terms of stage 3. You are specifically referring to information received pursuant to arrests in terms of stage or under stage 4. That is what you say, General.
Asilandela imigama lothetha ngayo apha owesithathu abo bazawuhlakazwa khona owesine apho bazawuthathelwa khona izixhobo nazo uthi ke emva koko kuyawungena kwelesihlanu nelesithandathu apho bekuzawulandela khona abo bantu ababanjiwe ke kufunyane ingxelo kubo ezawusetshenziswa.
So logically, General, stage 6 could only have been implemented in terms of the overall operational plan after stage 4 had been implemented. Do you agree with that simple proposition?
Yavumelana nami ke apha ukuba kude kufike kweli nqanaba lesithandathu bekuzawufuza kugqithwe kuzo zonke ezezinye ngokulandelana kwazo kunjalo General?
No, Chairperson.
Andivumelana noko.
Explain yourself.
Chairperson, I still maintained there was a scene on the 13th which was attended by LSRC and detectives, and from that scene of the 13th which I was asked in this commission, it was attended, it was handled people were interviewed. I even mentioned that one of the complainant saw the assailant and they were detained and they were submitted to the hospital in the same hospital bed. And that's information that I'm speaking about. Unless if the advocate says dependent on the dispersal of the 16, but according to me, it started stage 4, started even from the 13th, from Monday.
apha ke mhlekazi ndiye ndachaza ngesehlakalo senzeka mhla ka-13 apho umuntu owenzakala wakwazi ukulatha lo omnye baphaya esibhedlela bebonke babanjwa abo bantu uthi apho kwabanjwa abantu abangaphezulu kwekhulu bathathwa ngamafokisi babuza imibuzo bephenywa kuphandwa ezi zehlakalo.
Chairperson, I need also to add to say I also took the photos of those that I was communicating with them in order to try to trace them, and we also indicated that the detectives and crime intelligence and even Gauteng assisted us in order to get more information with regard to who are the conveners and so on, with the photos that were taken from the scene of the 13 where I was addressing the protesters. And to me, that was stage 4.
Xa ndithetha naba bantu phaya nge-13 kwabakho imifanekiso ifoto ezathathwa apho ezasetyenziswa ngabamafokisi nabezontlola ukuzama ukubona okokuba ngobani abo bantu ngobani iinkokeli zabo apho ke kuqala kungenwa kumgangatho lo wesine sithetha ngawo kweli cebo.
Are you telling us that the stages, as the police planned them, those stages were not supposed to take place sequentially, 1 up to 6? Is that what you are telling us?
Usixelela ukuba njengoba lalibhaliwe elicebo lamapolisi isigaba sokuqala esesibini sesithathu njalo azilandelwanga kwakwenziwa esinye singakenziwanga. Into osixelela yona leyo.
Chairperson, in my earlier testimony, I said that the spontaneous operation that I attended and the plan that followed, it was guided in the same way that I'm speaking about, starting from the 13th after I have updated the plan. And I said that I chaired the meeting of the 14th, which the plan was adopted, and that included what has already taken place from the 13th onward.
Ndiye ndachaza kokuba ndim ndandingumhlali umgcini sihlalo kwinhlangano yange-14 apho sathatha khona zonke izinto ezenzeka kusuka ngemini ezingaphambili zafakwa ke kweli cebo.
I seem to recall that at the meeting of the 14th, a suggestion was made by someone that there should be a cordon and search operation, but it was not included, it was not carried out because of insufficient police personnel.
Uvelile okokuba kwi-meeting yange-14 kwavela omnye waveza okokuba kufanele kubekho ziyojongwa lezi ndawo zihanqwe ziseshwe kodwa ayikwazanga ukwenza le nto ngoba bekungekho mapolisa alingene okokuba angenza loo nto ngelo xesha.
Chairperson, I did say that it was discounted to be one of the first option, but I will also request my transcript so that it should also be, so that I can explain it better, because I said it was discounted and then it was put as a stage 6. But I'm requesting that my transcription should also be, and so that I can, whenever I answer now, I can also refer to that.
Was it in fact going to happen before stage 3? The cordon and search, was that going to happen before stage 3?
Ingenzeka loo nto phambi kokuba nithathe umgangatho lo wesithathu.
Chairperson, when I was talking about this discounting, we were saying now that it was immediately after the Monday, and when we were debating what actions which formed the stages, it was saying, let's go now and do a cordon search on the following day. then the question came, and when we were discussing, to say, but if we go now, who are the conveners so that we can apply Regulation of Gatherings Act? Whom are we going to arrest? Secondly, what evidence do we have now to link those on the scene with the murder? Or is there anyone who has been linked already with the actions that have taken place on Sunday or on the other day? That made the discounting on the immediate coordinate search.
I understand that. But then later you say you got information from people arrested and you decided to proceed with the coordinate search. Is that right?
uthi generally yakhatsha lento mhla ka14 ngokuba sikwazi ukuya ngoba kungekho obunqina singazi nokuba ngobani ozawubosha aboshela ityala lantoni uthi umgcini isihlalo kodwa uthi kwaba babanjiwe nafumana ingxelo naqhubeka ngezo
I'm trying to understand the sequence of the events in this regard, you see.
Sizama ukufumana okokuba ezinto zazihamba ngolhlobo olunjani eAP yayilandela eAP.
Chairperson, as I'm saying, Advocate Madlanga, not today, earlier on asked me, which attempts did you do to implement stage 6? And I've said the attempts already started from Monday, but not necessarily that we could implement it in the near future. And as I've said that it was implemented ultimately in September. But the information towards implementing stage 6 started from the 13th.
Into bendiyichaza apha kokuba kufumana ingxelo eyenza okokuba size singene kwinqanaba lesithandathu.
What puzzles me?
Saqala ukulifumana phaya ekuqaleni ko-13 sifumana loo ngxelo eyenza okokuba sikwazi ukwenza ke emva kwaloo.
When were the first attempts made to implement that stage?
Inzame zokuqala zokokuba niyeke nibahanqe nibaseshe phaya ekuhlaleni zenziwa nini okokuqala?
Chairperson, on the 15th.
Of August or September?
Yes, when the provincial commissioner was said to be called to go to the management forum, we made
15.
an application in case we need the authority, because this was made as a contingency, in case we need the authority. And those are the dates that we are still working towards implementing.
The difficulty with that is that the authorization granted by the provincial commissioner is only valid for 24 hours. So it doesn't help to get an authority in advance, because it's going to use later, because it will have expired later. So what concerns me is I want to know, when was it intended to implement the coordinate search? After stage 3 had been implemented? Or before?
Ngoba imvume enaniyifumene kucommissioner yayise iphelele ixesha ngoba isebenza ii-hours ngu-24 kuphela.
Chairperson, as I'm saying is that it was not only intended, not dependent, if I may say so, only on the dispersal. Any other arrests that could have been made linked up with what was happening as a violence. And all that information should be accumulated to be used for stage 6. But then it's correct to say stage 6, not necessarily that it will have to be 3, 4, but it could, in terms of the actions that were taking place. I understand the chronology that the chairperson wants me to explain. I
can't understand why you call it stage 6. It was going to happen before stage 3 is implemented. That's the first problem I've got. But the second, perhaps, but I'll put my other problem as well, which I've already put to you, but I'll repeat it. The other problem I've got is this. It doesn't help to get an authorization in advance from the provincial commissioner to use when you get information, if you get information down the line, because, except if you get the information very quickly, because in terms of the Act, it's not the Regulation of Gatherings Act, it's another Act. In terms of the Act, any authorization granted is only valid for 24 hours. So it becomes stale. You follow? So those are my two difficulties. Perhaps you can help me.
Umbuzo endiwubuzayo lokuba ingxaki endinayo kokuba anikwazi ukuba nifumane imvume yokuba nenze lo msebenzi ningakafumani ingxelo ningakafumani ulwazi ngokuba iyokwenzeka loo nto ngoba loo mvumo isebenza nje kuze kuphele i-hour ezingu-24 emva koko iphelelwa ngamandla.
Chairperson, I agree with you, and hence it was ultimately implemented in September.
Ewe ndivumelana nawe mhlekazi iyenzeka ke le nto kude kwenzeka loo nto emva kwexesha ngenyanga kaSeptemba.
The one that we made here, it was in case when we need to implement it, because at that stage we were still checking and getting information
Apha sasenzela
because of
nje
the
ukuba xa
provincial
sifumana-
commissioner being going at a meeting.
apha sasenzela nje ukuba xa sifumana ingxelo ethize sikwazi ukuyisebenza ngelo xesha
And
ngoba
the-
ukomishina wayeze apho eze kwintlanganiso.
And the chairperson is correct. Section 13(7) of the Police Act is very clear, as the chairperson is saying.
Ndiyayazi loo nto ikhona phaya kumthetho wamapolisa okokuba le mvume isebenza ixesha elingakanani.
I think we can resume this debate after we've taken the tea adjournment, which we will now take.
Sizawuthatha ixesha nje lincinci letiye kwangoku. Fungo General.
Mr. Madlanga?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, may I take you to page 11187 of the transcript, your testimony. In chief, it's day 104. And I will read from line 22 at that page all the way down to line 10, page 11189.
Ndizawuphinda ubungqina bakho apho ndizawufunda khona ngolu hlobo.
This is what you say. There was also a proposal, Chairperson, that was said that can we consider starting with a coordinate search to disarm those members, to disarm the protesters, not members.
Kwakukho intetho yokokuba masibahane aba bantu sibathathele izixhobo.
With regard to the coordinate search, I will take the commission back to Friday when I was briefed by Brigadier Khalid.
Qondana naloo nto ndizawuthatha iCommission ndiyijongise emva ngoLwesihlanu xa ndixelelwa nguBrigadier Khalid.
There was an illegal gathering which took place of the RDOs, and the police station was informed of Marikana, and those that held that meeting there, they were not identified as leaders or anyone who is a convener.
Kwakukho intlanganiso yayingekho emthethweni yayibikwe emapoliseni aseMarikana. Aba bantu babehlangene phaya babengazi okokuba zinkokheli kanene ngabaholi na.
The commissioner will remember that it is well known that there was a march which took place, that the members went to the Lonmin mine during that Friday, and the leadership element or the conveners or anyone could not also be identified.
Kukho imatshi eyaziwayo okokuba baya phaya emayini yaselonmin bukodwa kungaziwa okokuba iinkokheli zabo abo babemasha ngobani.
I personally spoke with those that I intercepted at the railway mine.
Ndathetha ndadibana nabo phaya ngakuloliwe.
I could not know whom I'm talking to, whether he's a convener or who he is.
Abazo kokuba ngobani aba bantu zinkokheli kanene ngabantu nje abahola lo mqhankqalazo.
Chairperson, in the light of this, we could not continue to have a coordinate search, in the sense that if we want to go and do a coordinate search, whom are we going to arrest? Which law are we going to apply? Because it is precise that in terms of Section 3 of the Regulation of Gatherings Act, you must know who is a convener.
Sangazi ke mhlekazi ukuba sibabopha abantu ngoba singazi ukuba ngomphi umthetho izosebenzisa ngoba lo mthetho uthi mawazi ukuba ngubani obize lo ntlanganiso oyinkokheli.
Secondly, it is that it was a well-known fact that they were now well armed, and we don't know where they are staying.
Enye into ke sasazi ukuba baxhobe ngendlela ethize aba bantu singazi nokuba bahlala phi na.
They were in possession of police radios.
Bethe nonomathotholo bamapolisa.
They can hear when the police are talking.
Bekwazi ukuva xa kuthethwa amapolisa ethetha.
That might also give high risk in terms of the police being attacked if coordinate search has to be done.
Into yayingahle ibangele ubungozi ke xa amapolisa bangenela azame ukubabamba.
Chairperson, strategically, an operation of such kind, when you hold it during the day, surely you'll be seen. There will be no success in terms of arrests and in terms of confiscation of weapons, and if done during the night, it would pose a serious threat to the police and even to the protesters themselves.
Wathi ke mhlekazi xa besingayenza emini lento beyingenako ukuba impumelelo ngezi zizathu xa ingenziwa ebusuku beyinoba nobungozi kumapolisa nakubo abaqhankqalazi ngokwabo.
In the light of these reasons, Chairperson, it was rejected, and the cordon and search would not be the first stage, and it was put as a last stage in terms of a plan.
Kwathiwa ke ngaloo ndlela ke mhlekazi sangakwazi okokuba sithathe le sinyathelo sokuba bahanqe basetshe babanjwe ngolo hlobo leyo nto kwakuthiwa into ezakwenziwa ekugqibeleni.
Now, before I ask you any question on what you say here,
Ukuba ndibuza umbuzo ke ngale ntetho endigqiba kuyifundela yona ethethwa nguwe.
earlier in this same transcript, you mentioned that this was a discussion that took place at a briefing session in the morning of 14 August 2012. Do you accept that?
Uyakwamkela okokuba apha kwakusuka kuyintetho yayithethwa entlanganisweni yakusasa nge-14 zika-August ku-2012.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe kunjalo mna.
And now, General, if you say in so many words that a cordon and search was to be a last stage in terms of the plan, surely that must mean that it would be a stage coming after all the other stages, including an arrest in terms of stage 4 of the operational plan.
Xa uthetha ngolu hlobo ke General uthi leyo nto yayekwenziwa kuyinto yokugqibela uchaza okokuba yayekwenziwa emva kokuba sekuthethwe elinyathelo lesine sekugqityiwe ngalo.
Correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo mhlekazi.
And because in the evening of 15 August 2012, you did not know that stage 4 of the operational plan would take place on the 16th, you could not sensibly have applied for a cordon and search in terms of stage 6 of the operational plan. That flows naturally from what you've just said, correct?
Njalo kokuba xa nibambe ngokusihla kwe-15 zika-August ubungenalo ulwazi okokuba nizawufika kweli nqanaba ngako ungakwazi okokuba nifumane imvume yokokuba nikwazi ukubahanqa basetshe aba bantu kunjalo.
No, Chairperson, it depends on the interpretation of stage 4.
Apha ke kuyaya ngenkcazelo umuntu ayifaka apha kwinqanaba lesine okokuba lichaza ntoni.
General, stage 4 comes before stage 6, and your evidence says that in terms of the operational plan, number 6 is going to be last. What other interpretation could there be? Last can only be after 4, and 4 comes before 6. What other interpretation are you talking about?
Ingaba ngeyiphi inkcazelo General ngoba inqanaba lesine liza phambi kwelesithandathu. Akukho ndlela enye engachazwa ngayo lento ngaphandle kokuba la manqanaba alandelana xa uthi eli kuzaba lelokugqibela.
Chairperson, stage 4, according to me, started from the 13th, and I did testify to say a spontaneous gathering should also be treated as if it was legal, and I think we also dealt with it in terms of paragraph 5.4, which was yesterday, and that's why I'm saying stage 4, according to me, processing and handling of all any other matters, and started also from the 13th.
Njengoba ndichazile izolo kuba elinqanaba lesine ke la seliqalile phaya kwi-13 xa kwenzeka yonke lento ukubuthezela yonke ingxelo eyayivela apho nokuba kuphande zonke izehlakalo esezenzekile.
General, surely that cannot make sense.
Ayenze ayinangqondo loo nto uyithethayo.
You say that in the morning of the 14th of August 2012, the JOCOM briefing comes to a conclusion that let us defer a cordon and search for a later stage, for it to be last. And when it does that, when it says so, it is already aware of what had taken place on the 13th.
General, ntsasa yange 14 ka-August phaya kwiJOCOM kwenziwa isigqibo sokuba elinyathelo liyakwenziwa ekugqibeleni. Ngelo xesha ke iJOCOM le ibisinolwazi layo yonke into ibisenzekile kude kube ngelo xesha.
That decision is taken regardless of what you say had already happened on the 13th. What's your comment to that?
Thini ke kule nto esi sigqibo sithathwa nje banolwazi layo yonke into eyenzeke kusuka phaya kwi-13.
Chairperson, stage 4 says precisely, process arrested protesters and handle crime scene. I did have protesters on the 13th. I did mention that. Brigadier Van Zyl attended the scene of the 13th. And that's what I'm referring to.
Inkazelo ithi kufanele kuyiwe apho kwenzeke khona isehlakalo kuyojonga kuseshe lonke ndawo uBrigadier Van Zyl waya apho kwakwenzeke khona isehlakalo sangomhla ka-13.
There were exhibits that were found that they had to be processed by LSRC. Now, any other method that we could have got there, and as I'm saying from the 13th, that was the first attempt to work towards stage 6. And that information, we could not disregard it. And that's what I'm saying. Not per se that stage 6 will be implemented on the 13th.
Ngoba ndisitsho sasingefuna ukufika kwinqanaba eli lesithandathu nge-13 kodwa ke apha senza khona yonke ezi zinto esezenzekile zazizinto ezaziqala ukuya kulo mgama wokugqibela.
So, General, despite the fact that something approximating stage 4 had already commenced on the 14th, stage 6 would still be last. Do you stand by that? Stage 6 would still be last.
Inqanaba eli lesithandathu kwakuzakuba lelona lokugqibela noma eli elinye uthi laseliqalile selenzeka. Sema kuloo ntetho.
Chairperson, as is indicated in the plan, correct.
Ngoko kushiwo eplanini ewe.
So there is no way, therefore, and this flows naturally from your last response, it could have taken place prior to stage 3. Because if it were to take place before stage 3, then it would not be last.
Benganakwenzeka phambi kokuba kungene kwinyathelo lesithathu ngoba xa ibiyenzeke phambi kwenyathelo lesithathu bengeyona yokugqibela.
Chairperson, the plan also indicates that while after that has happened of the 13th, there was still a group that has to be dealt with at the mountain. But we could not disregard what has happened on Monday in terms of gathering the information of those that have been arrested.
Noma bisenzekile lento nge-13 kodwa ke sasisazo kokuba kusekho abantu abaphaya entabeni iqela eliphaya entabeni singakwazi ukuyiyeka lento eseyenzekile nge-13.
General, I'll repeat my question. What you've just said does not answer it.
Impendulo onikeza yona akuyona kule mbuzo endiwubuzile.
Do you accept that from your second last answer, it flows that because stage 6 was to be last, it could not have preceded stage 3, yes or no?
Ewe kunjalo kanena kunjalo General njengoba usitsho kokuba inqanaba eli lesithandathu lokugqibela belingakwazi okokuba lingenziwa xa kungelogqibela lenziwe phambi kokuba kwenziwe eli lesithathu.
Preceded means could not have followed stage 3.
No, taken place before.
C means go before. Are you saying that stage 3 was going to take place before stage 6? Sorry, are you saying that stage 6 was going to take place before stage 3, or was going to take place after stage 3? That's the point I think which Council wants clarity on.
That stage 3 could not have taken place, stage
6. I made the mistake. The question is, was stage 6 going to take place before stage 3 or after stage 3?
ubuzo kokuba inqanaba lesithandathu lalizokwenzeka phambi kwelesithathu ikanene emva kwalo.
After stage 6, after stage 3.
Alizokwenzeka emva kwemgangatho lo wesithathu inqanaba lesithathu.
Someone has got a cell phone that's going off. And if it's Mr. Madlanga, there's nothing we can do about it because he's got to stay and cross-examine. But if it's anybody else, would they please turn it off? Otherwise, I should have to do something about them.
Kukophethe ifone apha ephazamisayo xa ingeyakho make wenziwe inzame zokuba icinywe. Akukho indoda eyilibeleyo baya ishashini.
Someone perhaps should have answered the phone. Maybe it's an urgent security message for us. All right, we'll carry on now and hope that it wasn't an urgent security message.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, General, so if 6 was to take place after 3, it must also follow that it would not make sense for an application for a coordinate search in terms of stage 6 to be made at a time when the police were not yet aware when stage 3 would be implemented. That's just logical. Do you agree?
Vumelana nami okokuba bekungena kwenzeka okokuba bekungakwazi ukuba kwenzeka ukuba umgangatho wesithupha konke uba uzawuphaya ekugqibeleni ukuba kwenziwe isicelo sokokuba kuyiwe kuwo kungakaziwa okokuba kuyawufika nini kwinqanaba lesithathu eliyale kwenzeka phambili.
I don't agree, Chairperson. It depends on the situations, but in this case, my question will be based on Section 13, subsection 7 of the Police Act.
Apha ke mhlekazi andivumelani nawe ngoba kwakuyewa ngoba imeko injani xa sijonga umthetho lo wamapolisa usection 13 ukuba uthi.
General, the chairperson quite correctly with respect debated with you the question of the 24-hour period within which a cordon and search must be implemented in terms of the statutory prescripts. Are you suggesting that SABS could well apply for a cordon and search in terms of stage 6, not even specifying dates and times, not even aware when stage 3, which must take place first, would have been implemented? Is that what we are suggesting?
Into ethethayo leyo general okokuba nani SAPS yayizakwenza isicelo okokuba kungenele kwinqanaba lesithandathu.
And maybe
enikeza ixesha ne-date ningakagqithi kweli lesithathu.
And maybe let me add to that again a point made by the chairperson. You apply, you specify dates and times, you do not know when stage 3 is going to be implemented and stage 6 must take place afterwards. What if the dates and times that you specify expire even prior to the implementation of stage 3? The whole thing is nonsensical. So are you suggesting that SABS could well have applied for a stage 6 coordinate search, even if not yet aware when stage 3 would be implemented? Is that what you're suggesting?
Into ethethayo le general okokuba nanenze isicelo sokokuba ningenele kwinqanaba lesithandathu ningazi okokuba iyokwenzeka nini lento ephaya emgangathweni wesithathu ebekwe amadate nexesha lokuba iyokwenzeka nini lesithandathu.
Chairperson, we were dealing with a situation that was fluent and that anything can happen at any time. Maybe fluent, it might be a wrong word, but a situation that was...
You're looking for is fluid. But
yes.
Yeah.
And the provincial commissioner was supposed to go to a national management forum.
apha mhlekazi sasijongene nemeko eyayimaxongo ngendlela okokuba yintoni nantoni beyingenzeka enye ke into eyayisidinga ukuba uNational Commissioner kwakudingeka ukuba aye kwintlanganiso yakazwelonke.
Now, the Police Act which I have quoted, she is the only person to approve that.
Ngoku ke esisicelo enthetha ngaso nguyena kuphela umuntu onegunya lokokuba asivumele ukuba senze.
Chairperson, the approval was, as I stated before, a contingency plan. If we arrive at that time whereby we have to implement stage 6, then we should implement it.
Apha ke kwakwenziwe isicelo esingaphambilini okokuba xa elicebo lingasebenza ngalendlela side sifikele phaya kwinqanaba lesithandathu iyawusetyenziswa ke ngolo hlobo.
Chairperson, at that time that was a situation, and that's how I have applied my mind.
Imeko yayingolo hlobo ke mhlekazi yiko nje ndicika ndiyibeka ngolo hlobo nam.
When was the Provincial Commissioner to leave for the gathering that you referred to? When was she to leave for that?
Ayeza uhamba nini ke uCommissioner ukuya kule ntlanganiso othetha ngayo?
She was supposed to leave, or the meeting was supposed to start on the 16th. I don't know exactly when she was supposed to leave, but the person...
Not on the 15th?
I'm not quite sure, but...
Because I'll tell you why I say so. Please continue, General.
Kubeka, General.
Thanks, Chairperson. What I'm saying is that we tasked the legal officer to prepare for the application, and the legal officer is Advocate Mulman. She will precisely know what was the circumstances, but that is the reason why the application had to be made.
Sasicele abasemthethweni abezomthetho phaya emapoliseni uAdvocate Molman okokuba kube nguyena owenza amalungiselelo esisicelo uyena ozokwazi ukuxelela ukuba kwakuphansi kwemeko ezinjani.
She could not have been there on the 16th, General, because on the 16th at past 9 in the morning, she's addressing the media back here in Marikana. So it was, and in fact, according to what she says in paragraph, I think it's 18 of her statement, she was, on the 15th, she was at that gathering, and in the evening after she had received a phone call from you, she briefed the National Commissioner there. So at least we know on the 15th she's there. On the 16th she's back here.
Siyazi ukuba nge-15 waye phaya entlanganisweni uyakhumbula ethi wafumana umnxeba uvela kuwe wade waxelela uNational Commissioner ngaloo nto nge-16 wayekhona phaya ngale mini azawuxelela bentatheli ngentenzeka.
At least not back here, we are in Centurion now and no longer in Rustenburg. But so she was back in Rustenburg on the 16th.
Phaya ke Rustenburg nge-16 kunjani?
Correct, Chairperson. What I was alluded to, it was that when the invitation comes that she has to attend the management meeting, we did not know when she will be back. But what I was saying is that that approval was a contingency plan, and it also indicates the time as have been alluded to.
Njengoba xa efumana isicelo efumana imeme ukuba ufanele abesentlanganisweni sasingazi sine kodwa ke esisicelo senziwa kuyinto ebekiwe ukuthi xa kunesidingo sokuba isetshenziswe iyawusetshenziswa ngelo xesha.
Mr. Madlanga, slide L82, does that perhaps throw some light on the debate you were having with a witness about the continuing of carrying over information for searches later, the manner in which the stages are described?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hemraj. Actually, one of my juniors, Advocate Wesley, opened it for me. It was right in front of me, but thank you very much. General, can I take you to slide 82?
Masiya phaya ku slide 82, General.
But it actually, this helps to confirm what after a rather lengthy debate you eventually accepted. That is, 6 would be last and therefore would follow the preceding stages. Look at what this says, it says stage 4, process arrested protesters and handle crime scene. Once the protesters are disarmed and arrested and the area is declared safe, the LRC and detectives are to handle the processing of evidence and suspects. Weapons which appear to have blood on them are to be swabbed for forensic testing. Stage 5, intelligence-driven follow-up operations to arrest at places of residence. The detectives and/or crime intelligence will follow up on information gained from interviewing suspects or intelligence received with regard to suspects linked to murders or to the whereabouts of the stolen firearms taken from the murdered mine security and police officials. Stage 6, coordinate search of hostels. In order to complete the disarming process, and that can only be the disarming process dealt with in the stages. In the Marikana area, the Career and Wonerkop hostels will have coordinate search operations executed to remove any further dangerous weapons in order to stabilize the area. And my attention was also drawn to a paragraph in Colonel Scott's statement, which is dated 19 November 2012, and it's a... So long I can say triple G, I'll give you the number just now.
Paragraph number, Mr. Midlanga.
4.123, Mr. Chairman. 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. And it's triple G 39, Commissioners. I will not read that, but also it sets out the same sequencing.
Beka ngayo lindlela ibekwe ngayo apha ku slide 82 okokuba ezinto zazawulandelana ngolhlobo nolhlobo ebonisa okokuba le umgangatho wesithandathu bekuzawuthi xa kuyovalwa kusearch amahostela kuthathwe izixhobo kwindawo yaseMarikana naseCarrier nasehostel yaseVonorkop kuthathwe yonke into kufunyana bonke ubungqina nezixhobo ezizazithethwe emapoliseni nakwi-security officers.
As I indicated, you did accept eventually that stage 6 was to be last, so it was to follow the arrests in terms of stage 4, and also even follow stage 3, the dispersal action. Now can I...
balento ibizosebenza ngolo hlobo njengoba ibekwe apha esi sesithandathu kuzoba sesokugqibela.
Can I take you to your application for a coordinate search? Copies have been handed up to the commissioners.
The document has not yet been given an exhibit number.
Yes, Mr.
So I think it will be triple H18, but I always say this with fear and trembling and look towards Ms. Pillay. Is that right, Ms. Pillay?
That's correct, Chief.
Thank you.
Isicelo esenasenza sokufumana incwadi yokwenza umgangatho ukungena emgangathweni lo wesithandathu.
So the coordinate search application
Yes, Mr.
is, which in fact it's a bundle of documents, which, but I take it can be paginated, but we'll call the whole thing Exhibit triple H18.
Yes, Mr.
It's the coordinate search application and other documents, which includes the actual authorization issued by the Provincial Commissioner in terms of Section 13.7 of the South African Police Services Act, and also a covering memorandum from Advocate Moorman and the application, I think, from...
Yes.
There's a covering letter and there's an affidavit
by
signed by Brigadier Carlitz, and then I think countersigned by the witness. And there's also an annexure indicating the area covered by the authorization.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Esicelo ke sibhale uBrigadier Carlitz kwabhalwa nezindawo ekuthethwa ngazo kokuba kuzawuya kuzona namaxesha ekuzawuya ngawo.
Yes, sorry, I said the affidavit by Brigadier Collins was countersigned by the witness. I'm wrong. It's the actual letter to the Provincial Commissioner, which includes which annexes the application. That's signed by the witness on page 2 of the bundle.
Lento ndithetha ngayo incwadi yayibhaliwe apho kwenziwa khona isicelo kubekwa ku-Provincial Commission ukuba yintoni nantoni ecela okokuba abanike imvume yokuyenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a second, please. General, you say
And we're
that
still looking for the document. I think let's give him a chance to find it, and then when he's on, you got it now.
Chairperson, I did.
So council can now ask you the question.
Correct, Chairperson.
General, is there anywhere where you can demonstrate to this commission that despite the fact that at a JOCOM meeting, morning of the 14th of August 2012, it had been decided that stage 6 would come last, and despite the fact that the stages that preceded, excluding those, of course, of negotiation, showing of force, and so on, the stages that precede it had not yet taken place, an application should nonetheless, an application for a coordinate search should nonetheless still be made as a contingency measure. Is there any record somewhere that shows us that such a decision was taken?
Kukho apho ungasibonisa khona ukuba kwenziwa esisigqibo sokuba makwenziwe esisicelo sokuba kuyosetshwa lezi ndawo.
Chairperson, I did testify about the problem of the minutes of the 14, and this, and then again, is a question of now today I say for stage 6, we did not know when, and hence we made the application because we were dealing with the situation that we could be implementing stage 6 at any time, depending on the chronology, as you have already said it.
Endiye ndabanayo ngemizuzu iminutes zange-14 kodwa ke mandichazwa kokuba apha senza esisicelo sazo kokuba siyawufika emgangathweni wesithandathu singazo kokuba nini senzele nje ukuba sibe nelungelo lokuthi sifike apho xa sifika.
Was this decision to bring this or make this contingency application, was it taken at JOCOM briefing or meeting?
Esisigqibo sokuba kwenziwe esisicelo sathathwa kwintlanganiso yeJOCOM ika-NNP.
Chairperson, it was discussed at that JOCOM meeting based on the reasons or on the circumstances that the provincial commissioner might also go to the meeting. But the reason why, it was the time when we were debating because we were still concerned about the carrying of weapons by the protesters at that stage. And then I said that why it was debated, it was because of what has happened on Monday and the carrying of weapons by the protesters.
iyabakho intetho njengaleyo ke enziwa ngokuba u-provincial commissioner kwakungathi kubekho isidingo sokuba ahamba abe kule nhlangano enye intlanganiso enye into ke yayingxako kokuba ziye zenzeka ezi zinto aba bantu sazi ukuba phethe izixhobo nezinto ezenzeke imini ezithize phambi koko.
We haven't had it as handed in, we haven't had handed in as exhibits, or as an exhibit, the minutes of the meeting of the 14th, as far as I understand, the JOCO meeting. Am I correct in saying that?
Ezi minutes athetha ngazo zomhla ka-14
Perhaps Mr. Matibeti could tell us what's happened to those minutes and why we haven't got them.
azikho phambi kwe-commission xa kungabakho inkcazelo ukuba yintoni zingekho.
Mr. Matibeti, it's clear from Exhibit L that when Exhibit L was drafted, the minutes must have been available because there are detailed slides here dealing with what was decided on the 14th. So I would have thought, unless I'm misreading the situation, that the minutes must have been available. Now, where are they? They're not on the police hard drive, as I understand it. The witness doesn't know where they are. But it may well be an important document for us.
Mr. Chairman, can I revert on this aspect after
Yes, please do. I would appreciate it if that was done as a matter of urgency. Thank you.
umhlekazi uMathibeti uthembisa okokuba kuzawuthi emva kwelantshi akwazi ukunikeza impendulo kuloo ntetho ukuba iphi leyo mzuzu yange-14.
You said at that meeting, so you must be, and you said the application, contingency application for a coordinate search was discussed at that meeting. You're referring to the meeting of the 14th?
Correct, Chairperson. When the options were debated in terms of the plan, how to start based on the circumstances, and when looking at Section 13 of the Police Act, that the only person who can approve the application is the Provincial Commissioner, the reason that were mentioned in the Act, that's the one that I'm referring to. And then when we were debating that, and that's where then the issue of a contingency application be put in place. In the case when we have to go to stage 6, and if the Provincial Commissioner is not available, we can proceed.
Iyavela le ntetho xa kuvela le ntetho kokuba u-provincial commissioner angathi ahamba aye kule ntlanganiso ngoku kwasekwenziwa ke eli cebo lokuba makwenziwe le sicelo asekhona apho ukuthi xa kwenzeka uba sifike apho kufanele singene khona emgangathweni wesithandathu sibe nayo imvume yokwenzeka oko.
And was the decision on the 14th in the morning, was the decision that let us lodge an application with the Provincial Commissioner as a contingency measure for a coordinate search, just in case she might not be there when we want to bring the application? Are you saying that's the decision that was taken in the morning of the 14th of August?
Uthi eso sigqibo sathatha kusasa ngentsasa yange-14 zika-August okokuba makwenziwe esi sicelo ngoku asekhona ucommissioner ngoba kungahle kwenzeka ukuba xa sidinga okokuba senze esi sicelo angabi khona ma ibe khona loo nto.
Chairperson, whether is recorded in the minutes as a decision, I don't know at this stage, but it was debated in that meeting, and it was also raised in that meeting.
Yavela kuloo ntlanganiso.
Because I don't have the minutes now, which I can say, yes, it is recorded as a decision, but what I know, it was debated on that meeting because actually we were debating as to whether can we go now and disarm the protesters. Can we put it as stage 1? And I think that's what is indicated in my earlier evidence.
You keep emphasizing it having been debated, and then you say you do not know if it was recorded as a decision. What I want to establish as a matter of fact, because we don't want to be confused at the end, what I want to establish as a matter of fact is whether you are saying it was decided. It was actually decided, let us lodge an application as a contingency measure for a coordinate search, just in case when we get there, the provincial commissioner is not around. Was that decided at the meeting of the 14th in the morning?
Umbuzo kokuba kwenziwa isigqibo na apho kunhlanganiso ya ngentsasa ye-14 August uba makwenziwe esisicelo ngoku okokuba uprovincial commissioner ayisayinde le nto kwenzeka ukuba xa sifika kulo mgangatho engekho sikwazi ukuba sisebenze.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe kunjalo.
Since it was debated on that day.
Yathethwa kwaba kwintetho enjengaleyo ngaloo mini.
Was it decided at this meeting when the application would be brought and for what period it would be brought?
Isigqibo senziwa okokuba iza kwenziwa nini eso sicelo nemini ekuzawubekwa ngayo okokuba yenziwe iza kuba nini.
Chairperson, I cannot precisely say that, but it was Advocate Mulman was tasked to prepare the application. And I think she could be probably in a better position to say when precisely.
I understand that. Sorry.
Nalwazi apha kodwa kumuntu owayenza esi sicelo ngu-Advocate Molman uyena ozawuba ngcono kokuba phendule.
Of the police strategy, when would it be carried out? When was it intended? Was it discussed at the meeting of the 14th when it was intended that this might be carried out, given the very small window period you have?
Umbuzo
24
ukuthi
hours.
xa nenza eso nithetha ngaloo nto sasesenziwe na isigqibo kokuba kuzawungena nini kulo mgangatho kuyawungena ngeyiphi imini.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe kunjalo.
And what was the decision that was taken? When were you going to apply for it and for what period?
Ithini ke maxesha nemini kwakunini?
Chairperson, precisely with the times, I'm not going to be precise on the times, but there was a time where we also considered to have stage 3 on Wednesday, and we couldn't implement it on Wednesday. We also had a huge number of members, and that because we were considering to implement it on Wednesday, the dispersal process. And there was also a time where we were saying, and the situation did change when I met with the union leaders on Wednesday.
Kukho ixesha sasithethe khona okokuba kuyakwenzeka le nto beyenzeke ngoLwesithathu, kodwa ke kwase kubakho uguquko yashintsha imeko emva kokuba sendidibene nenkokheli zabasebenzi zemibutho yabasebenzi.
The possibility that you might implement stage 3 on Wednesday the 15th, was that discussed at the 14th morning JERCOM meeting as well?
Into kokuba kungenzeka ukuba nithathe olunyathelo ngale mini yangoLwesithathu yenziwa phaya kwintlanganiso yange-14 ngentsasa.
Chairperson, I know it was discussed, but I just wanted maybe to check whether was it precisely on the 14th or maybe on the other day. If that I could confirm.
Ukwenza inyanisa ukuba kwakunini nge-14 kanene kwezinye na imini.
But as a matter of fact, there was a stage where, Chairperson, that we were considering to disperse on Wednesday.
Kodwa ke mandisho kokuba kukho ixesha apho saba nenjongo sithi lento izokwenzeka ngolwesithathu. Leyo kwahlukanisa kwabantu.
When did you decide not to proceed on Wednesday?
Enza nini isigqibo ukuba ningaqhubeki?
When did you abandon or defer the idea
Lithi nayiyeka nini
implementing stage 3 on the Wednesday?
injongo yokuba lento izokwenzeka ngolwesithathu?
Chairperson, it is when I met the union and the management on Wednesday.
Kwaba ngelixesha ndidibana na enkokheli zemibutho yabasebenzi nemanagement ngolwesithathu.
And what I wanted to check precisely, it's whether it was on Wednesday or Tuesday where we actually defer the what?
You attended the meeting, according to your original statement, paragraph 33, with the unions at about 2 p.m., 1400 hours, as you would say, on the 15th. But you'd already, on the previous day, at 8:30 p.m., 2030, on the Tuesday evening, arranged a meeting with the unions.
Andithi inkokheli eziwa
So that's paragraph 31 of your original statement.
unazo ngomhla ka-15 phaya ko-2 kodwa isigqibo ke sokuba uzawuthetha nabo sasenziwe phaya ngemini yange-14.
So what's the position? When did you say on the will the minutes, if we can ever find them, of the meeting of the 14th indicate that it was planned to implement stage 3 on Wednesday the 15th?
Aze ngafunyana leyo mizuzu iminutes ezange-14 zizawubonisa okokuba kwakucetshwe okokuba umgangatho wesithathu wenziwe ngolwesithathu.
I understand you haven't seen the minutes, but I mean, I take it if the decision was made on the Tuesday the 14th that stage 3 would be implemented on Wednesday the 15th, I would have expected that to be in the minutes, surely. Would you agree with me on that?
Esinjengeso kuyawudingeka ukuba sibe khona kwi-minutes, akunjalo?
Correct, Chairperson. That's why I'm saying also if I can get any other documentations that can also show that we would implement stage 3 on Wednesday. That's what also earlier on I indicated that there was a time at one stage where we were also saying we can implement the dispersal process on Wednesday. But I wanted also to get, other than those minutes, I wanted to get any other evidence that I can present to the Commission about that.
Apande kwemizuzu le minutes ezibencinga uba mhlawumbe kukho olunye ukwebhu apho ningafumana khona apho kwakuthethwa khona ngesi sigqibo esasenziwe.
Are you saying you'd like to have access to documents that are not before us at present to enable to check these facts? Is that what you're saying?
Uthetha ngamakwebhu njoku angekho apha phambi kwekomishini kwangoku.
Others might be here. I just wanted to check the meeting of Wednesday after I met the union leaders. Wednesday, if is also here, we can check on that whether was a decision not made there in terms of...
Kungenzeka ukuba amanye akhona apha njenga ngile xesha ndibene neenkokheli zemibutho yabasebenzi kungenzeka ukuba lento yavela apho.
What you told us in your original statement was the following, that on the Tuesday evening at 8:30 p.m., you arranged through the mine management that you'd have a meeting the following day with the management and the 2 trade union presidents. What you then tell us in paragraph 32 of your original statement was the next morning at 6 o'clock, that's on the morning of the 15th, Wednesday the 15th, at 6 o'clock, there was a JOCOM briefing. Decision was taken to continue with the negotiations. And then you go on to say that Brigadier Pretorius informed you during the course of the morning that the representatives of the protesters advised the lawyer wanted to meet with you, requested your telephone number. We don't have to go on about that. And then you had the meeting with the unions and the management at 2 p.m. on the Wednesday afternoon, the 15th. But clearly by that time already, there was no question of implementing stage 3 on the Wednesday. So that, in fact, it would have been inconsistent, I would have thought, with the decision made at 8:30 on Tuesday evening to have a meeting with the union presidents on the Wednesday and the management of Lonman. It would have been inconsistent with that decision to have had an implementation of Stage 3 on the Wednesday. But as far as we can see from your statement, the only JOCOM meeting which you say is the one on the 15th. Sorry, the one at 6 a.m. to which you refer in paragraph 32. And as far as JOCOM meetings the previous day, as far as a JOCOM meeting on the previous day is concerned, the only mention we have of that is in your affidavit, your original statement, which starts in paragraph 23, talks about a meeting on the morning of Tuesday the 14th. And this statement is rather full. Paragraph 23 and following quotes a mission statement that was adopted by the JOCOM, sets out Lieutenant Colonel Scott's proposals for the strategy, which was approved by everybody, sets out the six-stage plan that was adopted. I find it astonishing that the statement with all this detail could have been prepared in the absence of the minutes. But perhaps there's an explanation for that. But what I want to ask you is this. Would Advocate Moorman, I think she's a captain, would Advocate Moorman be able to give evidence on this? Was she present at the meeting on the Tuesday?
Umbuzo kokuba wayekhona uadvocate Molman ucaptain kwinhlanganiso leyo ngolwesibini apho angakwazi ukuchaza zonke ezi zinto bezibuzwa ngumgcini sihlalo ngaphambili ngoku. Ngoba esithi umgcini sihlalo kuyadingeka ukuba bekho izi-meeting ezazisetyenziswa xa kwenziwa le plan apha kuvela khona ukuba uScott kwavunyelwana ngantoni nantoni kule meeting yangentsasa yange-14 zika-August.
Including the siege that he talks about. Those people were on the way to the court. He doesn't talk about going in court essentially.
You see, what has been put to me by Advocate Hemorrhage, I'll put to you in a moment. But the further question I want to ask you is, was Brigadier Pretorius at the meeting on the 14th?
Chairperson, with my earlier testimony, it was that Brigadier Sibuluki informed me because Brigadier Pretorius could not have taken over by then. So Brigadier Sibuluki was supposed to hand that, and I think is what the chairperson asked Advocate Matibedi to get that explanation.
And Advocate Captain Moorman, was she at the meeting on the 14th?
Uthi waqela nguSibuluki njengoba echazile ukuba umhlekazi uMathibeti uza kuyiveza loo nto ubuzwa kuba uadvocate Molman wayekhona naye.
Correct, Chairperson, because she was always there.
Ewe wayekhona ngamaxesha.
Sorry.
Next point I put to you is put to me by Advocate Hemorrhage. It's her point, not mine, but I gratefully adopt it. If one looks at paragraph 23 and 24 and 25 and 26, 27, of your original affidavit, there's a full discussion of what happened that was discussed at the meeting of the 14th. Nothing is said about any decision to apply for a cordon and search authorization from the Provincial Commissioner. Nothing is said about a possible implementation of Stage 3 on the Wednesday. Can you explain that?
Ngakwazi ukubanika xa sijonga istatement sakho kusuka phaya ku-25 ukuya phaya ngasekugqibeleni akukho apho ivela khona intetho yokokuba kwanziwa isigqibo sakuba kuzawubakho intetho enjengalena isicelo esokwenziwa nokuthi kuyawufikelwa kuthathwe esi sinyathelo somgangatho wesithathu. ayiveli leyo ntetho apha kwi-statement sam.
Chairperson, there could not be any other explanation, but what I put here, it is precisely how we were also planning in terms of putting the plan to disperse the crowd. But to say precisely why is not mentioned here, I will not have that explanation.
You see, there's another point that flows from the point I just put to you, and that's at the top of page 9, as part of paragraph 23. You say that what was an operational strategy which was considered included this: the protesters would be prevented from gathering at the copy armed. All those approaching the copy were to be searched and disarmed, and those already on the copy encircled and disarmed. Strategy was considered not feasible. So that was discussed and considered and rejected at that stage because it was not feasible, because there weren't sufficient resources to implement it. But the other decision which you say was taken, to apply for a cordon and search authorization from the commissioner, provincial commissioner, under section 13.7 of the SABC Services Act, isn't even mentioned.
Apha ke uyachaza okokuba neyathethwa le nto yakhatywa ngobani ithi into engakwazi ukwenzeka ngemeko eyayikhona ngelo xesha. Kodwa ke uthi kwenziwa isicelo apha kokuba kusayinjwe le ncwadi yokokuba kuyosasazwa kuhanjwa kubanjwa
The point being that what is in this paragraph is what was discussed was disarming of the strikers as they came towards the copy. There's no discussion mentioned here about searching, cordoning, searching, disarming those persons already in their homes. That's the distinction that we wanted to draw with this paragraph.
Umehluko okhona apha kokuba aba bantu babezawuvinjwa banqandwe apho basetshe ngaba babeya entabeni ngelo xesha. Akukho ntetho yokokuba kwakuyawungenwa emahostela kusetshwe ezo zindawo.
Probably why it couldn't appear here is that we already decided that it should be a stage, it should be number 6, the last stage. Because what I indicated here is that we were debating in terms of where to start to approach the situation.
Into eyenza ukuba engaveli apha ukuthi mhlawumbe kwasekwenziwa isigqibo kokuba lo kuzawuba mgangatho wokugqibela ngoba sasithetha apha okokuba sawuthatha eliphi inyathelo lilandele ngeliphi njalo njalo.
I need also to state that on the 14th there was a time where I also met General Annandale when he arrived from Pretoria, and we also discussed in terms of when I gave him feedback about the meeting that took place, because in the morning he was not there. But that also could be filtered in terms of, could have made an influence in terms of what we were intending to do. And I did give him a feedback of saying that we were intending to do a cordon and search, and then we also have to intend to then to say, if the provincial commissioner is not there, what can we do? And I remember when we spoke about that, then we even spoke about the resources, and there was also an attempt to get the resources for Wednesday. And this is what I wanted to bring to the commission, to say that there was a time where we also wanted to disperse on Wednesday, and there were also attempts that were made to do that on Wednesday.
Into bendiyichaza kokuba kufikeni ka-Annandale nge-14 ndaba nentetho naye sathetha ixesha elide apha ndimxelela ukuba kwenzeke ntoni nantoni, kwade kwafika apho sithi khona besinenjongo ukuba le nto yenziwe ngayo uLwesithathu lona, apho kwathetha ukuba zanele na izixhobo zokwenza umsebenzi onjengalowo, banele abantu na into enjengezo zavela ngelo xesha.
The proposal which was rejected, which I read you on top of page 9, of your first statement, all those approaching the copy were to be searched and disarmed, and those already on the copy encircled and disarmed. That wouldn't have been covered by the cordon and search that was applied for, because the cordon and search applied for didn't include the area that was the subject of the application and was subject to the authorization ultimately granted, didn't include the copy. It in fact simply included the hostels and the adjacent informal settlement, as appears from the maps which are annexed to the application. Is that right?
Andithi kunjalo okokuba isicelo esisambelana nezindawo ezezivele kwimap lena efakwe apha ihostela nezindawo eziphaya ekuhlaleni ayithethi ngale nto ukuba kwakuzawunqanda kuvinjwe aba bantu abaya entabeni bathathelwe izixhobo.
Correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo.
Maybe we are talking about two different things here. I understand now.
Ndiyeva ngoku mhlawumbe sithetha ngezinto ezihlukile ezimbini ezohlukile.
I did speak about the options that we considered, and that option is not a cordon and search. The Chairperson is correct, as you pointed out. It was an option which we were discussing in the what? Cordon and search, when it was discussed as to whether should it be implemented immediately or not, and that is also was one of the other options. But the Chairperson is correct to say to make a filtering line to the copy. That was not cordon and search. I agree.
Apha ke uthetha iyenzo mhlekazi okokuba kwakuzokwenziwa apho umqa ukuba aba bantu baya entabeni bathathelwe ezixhobo ngelo kwakungeyona ke lento sasihlosile okokuba kuyoseshwa le yokuthi bayohanqa baseshwe yayingenye yayizokwenziwa emva kwexesha.
I'm sorry we've taken over your cross-examination for a bit, but I trust you'll forgive us and proceed.
I'm actually very happy with the takeover, Mr. Chairman. General, along the same lines as what the Chairman touched on, one of the people who were closely involved in what was happening there is General Annandale. He has already testified. Nowhere whatsoever does he mention a contingency plan or application rather for a cordon and search. Does that surprise you?
Izokumangaza ke into yokuba omnye umuntu owathatha inxaxheba kakhulu kuyo yonke le nto eyenzeka lapha kwakuGeneral Annandale uye wangqina apha akukho apho kuvela khona kubungqina bakhe ngale nto ayithethayo kokuba wathetha ngesicelo esisokusetsha leza zindawo.
Chairperson, for a fact, General Annandale knows about it.
Uyayazi loo nto.
We also spoke about it.
Sathetha ngayo naye uGeneral Annandale.
But what I will say is that General Annandale was not in the meeting in the morning because he did go back on the 13th. He arrived back on the 14th. But when he arrived, I remembered also talking to him about it.
Into nje ukuthi wayengekho phaya kwinhlanganiso ngoba wafika nge-13 waphinda umva waphinde wabuya nge-14 xa efika ke nge-14 waba ndim endimxelelayo ukuba kwenzeke ntoni phaya emhlanganisweni.
But as the application was in progress, he would have been aware of the fact that there is a contingency application for a cordon and search. But he still does not mention it in his testimony.
Yayikhona ke lento yalesi sicelo le application yokokuba kuyosetsha leza zindawo wayezokwazi ngayo wawuzomxelela ngayo wayebeza kuyiveza.
In particular, that it's a contingency application, but an application to pursue stage 6 of the plan. Nowhere does he mention that.
Akazange ayivezeke lento kokuba leyo application yayenziwe kwakuzoba i-application eyayosetshenziswa phaya xa sekuthatha umgangatho wesithandathu. Kukho apha ayiveza khona loo.
Chairperson, I don't know why General Annandale didn't mention it.
Andiyazi ukuba yintoni angayivezanga uGeneral Annandale mhlekazi.
But I know for a fact that he knows that Captain Mulman, Advocate Mulman, was tasked to prepare the application.
ndinolwazi olupheleleyo okokuba unalwazi okokuba u-Advocate Molman wacela okokuba enze eso sicelo.
And we should also have an approval as a contingency. In the case that we have to proceed to stage 3, we have an authority.
Wayenalo ulwazi lokokuba masifumane imvume njengaleyo xa kunesidingo sokuba mhlawumbe singahle suthathe singene kulowo mgangatho.
Colonel Scott was at that meeting, the meeting of the morning of 14 August 2012, not so?
Andithi wayekhona uColonel Scott kule nhlangano ngaloo ntsasa?
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe mhlekazi.
We, the evidence leaders, have been furnished with a 149-page statement by Colonel Scott, and I've just confirmed from my learned friends behind me that it's a final statement. And I do not at this stage have a hard copy. It will be circulated and handed up as an exhibit, Mr. Chairman. But would it surprise you if I tell you that even in that very detailed statement, Colonel Scott, who is narrating or giving a narrative on what happened amongst others at the meeting of the 14th August, and despite the fact that that's a very lengthy statement, he does not mention this contingency application for a coordinate session in terms of stage 3. Does that surprise you?
Iyakumangaza ke into yokokuba ndiphethe istatement apha esika-Colonel Scott eside 149 yamakhasi apho engayivezi khona tu le nto yokokuba kwaye kwaba khona esi sicelo sale mvume yokokuba kuyosetshwa laa ndawo.
Chairperson, my only answer is I don't know why he has mentioned it, but Brigadier Khalid knows about it. He was in that meeting. He was also tasked to, along with Advocate Molman, and I think they can also testify to what I'm talking about.
Andiyazi ukuba yintoni angayivezi ke loo nto kodwa inyaniso kokuba noKalets wayekhona apho wacelwa yena noMolman okokuba banze esi sicelo sale mvume yokokuba kuyosetshwa leza zindawo.
I have had sight of Brigadier Khalid's statement, but I don't have it readily at hand. I have Captain Mulman's one dated, what's the date, Charles? 30 August 2012. And this is all she says about the application. On Thursday 16, this is at paragraph 3. Is this an exhibit? Copies will be made.
Should we give it an exhibit number in anticipation?
Yes, please.
We'll get the copies during the lunch adjournment.
Yes, Mr.
So
Chairman.
this will be exhibit HH 19.
Yes.
Affidavit, Advocate Millman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Captain, I mustn't deprive her of her military, of her paramilitary rank. Captain Millman, HH 19.
Captain ongu-advocate Captain Molman esizawuziswa apha njengobungqina emva kwe-lunch.
This is what she says, paragraphs 3 and 4. On Thursday, 16 August 2012 at 5 a.m., I arrived at the JOC to prepare the required documentation in regard to a coordinate search operation in terms of Section 13(7) of the South African Police Act 68 of 1995 on instruction of the overall commander, Major General Mpembe, and also to attend the daily morning JOC meeting. That's 3. 4. Due to a lack of office equipment in the JOC, I prepared the coordinate search documentation and conducted other administrative duties in a separate office some distance away from the JOC. She says nothing about this being something that flowed from a decision that had been taken at a meeting, or at the morning meeting of 14 August 2012. Do you see that?
Uthi
By the way, you
Molman
don't. But
wafika apho yena nge-16 ngexesha lika-5 ekuseni wamxelela wena kokuba makenze eso sicelo ngokuthi ke kungekho zixhobo zomsebenzi apho waphuma kwelinye office apho akayivezi lento njengento ekwaba sesigqibo sentlanganiso le yayikho.
Chairperson, but she is the one that also prepared the documentation. And as I've said, when I spoke to her, also she could have maybe asked any other thing if she could not understand.
Uthi uye owenza eso sicelo xa kukho into bengayivisisi kakuhle kokufana dinga ukuba andibuze.
We know that the document was signed by her on the 16th, and the covering letter was also signed by you on the 16th. Did she prepare documentation on the previous day, the 15th, also for a coordinate search? Or was there only one coordinate search application, the one made on the 16th?
Sicelo kwabakho esenziwe nge-15 kanene sabasinye nje esesenziwe nge-16.
Is the chairperson referring to prior, the one that was implemented, which she also prepared? It is the one that was
Implemented, I take it, was in September. We're not talking about that.
Okay.
We've got the one that's before us is Exhibit H 18. That's signed by the Commissioner, Provincial Commissioner on the 16th. It relates to, it's also in the same bundle, is a covering letter you signed, and she, which I think is also the 16th, isn't it? And is that right? No. The first document we hear is a letter which is dated the 15th at the top, that is signed by you. I'm not sure if it was actually signed on the 15th, because then attached to it is an affidavit by Brigadier Collins, which was signed on the 16th, and at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then there is a letter dated, described as an information note, dated the 16th August, signed on behalf of Captain Millman by somebody else. And then there's the authorization itself, signed by the Provincial Commissioner on the 16th. Now, what I'm asking you is this bundle of documents we have, is this the only coordinate search application that you know of that was made in respect of Marikana in August? Or was there an earlier one that was prepared and processed and signed and so forth, which fell away on an earlier date?
Umbuzo ke okhona kokuba le miqulu esinawo apha khona zonke izincwadi bethetha ngazo uchairman kuze kube ilesayino provincial commissioner iyokuphela kanene khona ezinye zenziwa ezingazange zisetshenziswe.
correct, Chairperson. I also wanted just the authorization itself to do some corrections there, because you could see that they said 16th day, they say Wednesday.
But those areas, but it's apparently signed on the 16th by the Commissioner, and this is what Captain Millman says in her affidavit. There was only one application in August.
Correct.
And it was done on the morning of the 16th. So what happened to the contingency? The Provincial Commissioner was back. She was at the Management Forum meeting on the 15th. So this whole contingency story falls to the ground.
Kwenzeka ntoni ke ngoba wayesebuyile uProvincial Commissioner wayekhona sentlanganisweni kwangekho sidingo sokokuba isetshenziswe akho nto.
Think about that. We'll take the lunch adjournment now, and you can give us the answer. We'll start again at 1:30 or soon thereafter as we can assemble.
Sizawungena apha ngo1:30 sifune impendulo. Inkosi.